Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the South Burlington City Council meeting for May 4th, 2026. We are going to begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Chownick.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Andrew. Item 2 is instructions on exiting this building in case we have an emergency and a review of our technology options with Jesse Baker.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us here in the room tonight. If there's an emergency in this room during the meeting, you can go out the rear of the auditorium on the left or right side and then turn left or right to get outside. For those participating remotely, thank you for joining us as well. If you'd like to speak during any item on the agenda, you can use the raise hand function in the webinar and the chair will call on you, or you can indicate that you would like to speak in the chat and I'll have the chair call on you. Other than that, we're not monitoring the Q&A or the chat for content. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Item 3, agenda review. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in the order of our agenda items tonight? Seeing as there are none, we'll move on to item 4, which is the time for comments and questions from the public that are not related to tonight's agenda. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak about something that's not on our agenda tonight, or anybody online? Is there anybody online? Okay, there are some people. Okay. So I don't see anybody with raising their hands. Nobody in the auditorium going once, going twice. Okay, we're going to move on. Item 5, Councilors Announcements and reports on committee assignments and the city manager's report. Who would like to go first?
I'll be quick.
Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
So sorry to say, I missed Illuminate, but I was in Florida. My mom's 90th birthday party, and all was good. So, and that took up most of my time, so I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you, Andrew. Elizabeth?
Sure. I did have a chance to attend one of the nights of Illuminate and just want to compliment Adam and his team for another very successful event. I will say the weather was very cooperative, so that was helpful. But it sounds like it was a record turnout, and I was just so impressed with the camaraderie and the community that showed up for that. I did attend the Planning Commission meeting. I'll hold off. Tim, you may want to report on a few things there. And then I also attended the Legislative Forum and got an update on kind of where bills are that might affect us and the state. And we'll be hearing more about that. Thanks.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Beth?
Yeah, I left my notes somewhere, but a little flustered because I can't find my phone. But anyway, sorry about that, folks. So I did attend Illuminate Vermont as well. I volunteered, but they had so many, Adam had recruited so many people that he didn't even really need me. It was so crowded that there were points during the time that I was there where you literally could not walk. You couldn't, the lines for food were so long that you couldn't penetrate them. And it does make me wonder, and I in no way mean this as a criticism, but I wonder if we're going to have to find a wider location for this event because it was so crowded this year. But it was great. I mean, there were so many people there and everyone was drinking and eating and being merry. I attended the Energy Committee meeting, and I'm not going to give any details on that because you're basically going to hear that in the work plan proposals that come in front of us, I think in the next meeting. And also I went to the Doubletree ribbon cutting. I was pretty amazed at how beautiful that place is. I mean, I would recommend that if you haven't been over there, take a look at the renovations because it's pretty cush. It's pretty plush. So I would say check it out if you haven't done that. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Beth. Lori?
I was out of town, so I missed meetings. As far as Illuminate Vermont, I did not make it, but I've run into numerous folks who were just glowing from the illumination. And it's the most chatter I've ever heard Illuminate Vermont get out in the community. And kudos to Adam and to the whole event. And I look forward to the day when the city green is surrounded by Illuminate Vermont and there are thousands of people. So that's looking forward. I did listen to the Rec and Parks Committee meeting that I missed. And just one point of note, there was a conversation at the beginning that one community member brought about handicap parking in the parks and where the handicap parking spaces are located and the difficulty that it is for handicapped folks to get to the fields to see their kids or grandkids or whatever play, and was suggesting that that's something that the Rec and Parks Committee could take a look at and see how those parking spaces could be better allocated or positioned for handicapped access. Other than that, Civic Soul gave the presentation that they had previously given NRCC, and they are up and running, and the committee was working hard on trying to finalize their proposed work plan. And I did listen to the council meeting that I missed on the 20th, and so I'm up to speed on that, and that's it for me.
Great, thank you, Lori. Pretty busy last couple of weeks. I attended a Public Arts Committee meeting where most of the time it was a review of their work plan, which they did then submit. I also went to the Planning Commission meeting that Elizabeth alluded to. They did a fairly thorough review of the Act 250 Tier 1A Rare and Threatened Species rules, and also finalized and then voted and approved their FY27 work plan, which we will hear about in the future as well. I also did volunteer at Illuminate Vermont, and for the 2 hours I had a great time. You might have seen me dancing in front of the stage when they played I Would Walk 500 Miles, because that's my wedding exit song from the church, and I had to prove to my wife that, yes, indeed, I love that song too. And so I took a little video of it. You can see it later if you want. I also went to a pension advisory committee meeting, and the fund is doing well. Not a lot of changes. Of course, the day that we had the meeting, something happened with Iran and the war, and everything, went in the stocks went in the ditch that day. But then they came back the following week. So, as they do back and forth, as we've seen over the last year and a half. Also, went to the DoubleTree New Wing Hotel opening that Beth was talking about. She was there. I gave a short speech, and speech is also given by John Rogers, the Lieutenant Governor. He went first, then me, and then Catherine Davis, who's the chair of the Lake Champlain Chamber of Commerce. That new addition, if you didn't know, is 64 rooms approximately, with 4 suites on the top floor. And so I talked about the way it was constructed, and they said they tried to exceed the energy specifications, right? So the walls were triple insulated with 2 foam boards and fiberglass mat in the middle. There's double glazing on all the sides that aren't on the street side across from Staples Plaza. That has triple glazing, right? So we got a tour, and I went up in one of those rooms, and when people had left the room, I just stood there and looked at the whole interstate, and you could have heard a pin drop. That room was so quiet, right? And then I asked about solar, and they said 90% of the roof is covered in solar. I'm trying to get a number on the kilowatts. I haven't heard back yet. They're trying to find out. And they have heat pumps that they ordered from Italy. They're special. So that's a result of our LDR. And then I talked to one gentleman. He was like, "Why did you make us pull the building up against the road?" And I go, "So that it's not sitting back like a quarter mile with a bunch of parking in front of it, like other places that we know of." And that's one of the reasons why we changed and we have those form-based codes. And then I wanted to remark that there's a new dentist office on Kimball Avenue, right, which is covered with solar panels on the roof and has some enormous heat pumps out on the side of it. If you haven't, I drive by it, every day. And it's quite impressive. So I have a feeling that our LDR changes that are requiring, solar on commercial buildings is having an effect. And these buildings are going to see that benefit immediately when, the sun shines. So it's really great. And not only that, but last week, when it was really sunny, there were 3 days in a row where in the ISO New England grid, the natural gas was like 38% of the source, and the next 18%, which was the next highest source, was renewables, which is probably almost all solar at that point. Hydro was way, way, way after that, right? So impressive. And then one last comment I want to make is that to my wife's surprise. She was driving to work on Monday morning last week, and the Sailing to Cure Cancer mural and the other mural on the underpasses of Farrell Street had been tagged with black paint scrawled. But we got out there Saturday and we fixed it. So it's all fixed. Yeah. So now we're waiting to see if it gets tagged again. But this happens. So, you do what you can. But anyway, that's all I have. Jesse?
Great, thanks. So also want to give you a few fun facts about Illuminate Vermont. So we had over 5,000 neighbors participate over the 2 nights, which was great. We also had Adam and Andy really focused on some new media outreach strategies. So we had a 23% click-through rate on our advertisement. I guess the average is about 6% historically and 13% for arts and entertainment. So I think that talks to like the growing momentum of that event. Huge thanks to Adam, as well as Alana and Andy and Bree and the library staff and Public Works and the police department as well for pulling off just such an incredible event. Adam won't even make eye contact when we praise him like this, but he did a great job. So following up on the success of that, Adam and his team are also launching this summer street dinners. This is a street block party effort to try and get neighborhoods who are underrepresented and participating in some of our recreation and parks programs engaged. So the first one is later this month for the Mayfair Park neighborhood. Currently we have 100 people registered for that event, which represents over half of the households in Mayfair Park, which is really exciting. Want to update you that Andy has been working with the Bike and Ped Committee on the e-bike signage program, so we should see those up by the end of May. Tim, you may have participated in this as well. The Public Arts Committee has received 4 proposals for the Wilson Road and Garden Street Public Art Project, and those will be on display starting May 7th, so folks can take a look at what that public art might look like. We talked about the DoubleTree, couple of construction things, and Tom or Erica or Silken jump in if I say any of this wrong. So Dorset Street is going to be reduced to a single lane tomorrow, starting Wednesday through Friday to facilitate the connection to the water tank. It will be a single lane, but there will be traffic control and a slight delay there. Additionally, coming up next week, there will be a Park Road full closure to connect the utilities for that development. There will be a detour onto Old Cross Road. So again, traffic control will be there, but it will be a slight inconvenience and people should plan accordingly. And of course, those dates are weather dependent, and Public Works will notice that as it's confirmed. And then folks, we got some questions about this last week. Airport Drive was milled last week and will be paved hopefully starting tomorrow, weather dependent, which is great. That road really deteriorated this winter. So those were the updates I wanted to share. Tom, did I mess up any of that? Great, thanks. That's all.
Thank you, Jesse. We'll now go on to the consent agenda, and we have several items. 6A is consider and sign the disbursements. 6B is approve and authorize the city manager to sign the construction agreement between the City of South Burlington, the University of Vermont, and the City of Burlington for the construction of the UVM Main Street Pond project. Item 6C, accept the Sadie Lane deed and associated infrastructure easements and authorize the city manager to enter into related stormwater agreements with the Sadie Lane Homeowners Association. Item 6D, award the engineering design contract for the Dorset Street and Songbird Road crosswalk project to Hoyle Tanner and authorize the Deputy Director of Capital Projects to execute all contract documents. 6E, accept Garden Street from Market Street to the dead end to the northeast and all other easements necessary to support the construction of the Garden Street East project. 6F, award the contract for Fire Station 1 design and construction administration to Smith Buckley Architects at a price not to exceed $136,200 and authorize the city manager to execute the contract upon review and approval of the city attorney. 6G, approve the minutes from March 2nd, March 5th, and March 16th of this year. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I have a really quick question. Can you remind me of what the timeline is for the Songbird Road crosswalk? Or is there someone here? Could
Erica sure can answer that question for
Yeah.
you.
just had a really quick question. I didn't have time to look it up before the meeting.
Good evening, Erica Quallentoll, Deputy Director of Capital Projects. That crosswalk is planned for construction next summer to coincide with the Spear Street path on the other end of Songbird Road.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Great. All right. Are you ready for the vote? All those in favor say aye.
I
And it is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, which is the fiscal year 27 Policy Priorities and Strategies Committee presentation, starting with Bike and Ped. Come on down.
Excellent time. So I will just note as our committee reps come down, so each committee submitted their work plan to us according to a template, and Anna has built that all into the database in preparation for your FY27 complete conversation. So you have one document that links all of the committee work plans, but if you click in the table of contents to an individual committee, you can go straight to their committee's proposed work plan.
Okay, thanks for having us. I was not expecting to be quite so early, but it's okay. We're ready.
See, one of you rode a bike today.
I did. Yeah, my daughter had the car, so there you go. Thanks for having us, and I also would say I'm liking the structure. My prepared remarks, I would say big picture for us, based on the economic plan, the city plan, and the active transportation plan. The main themes that come out from it is get the path so that we have closed the gaps, that it's a usable path, that there is other infrastructure to support the path and use, such as bike parking and the e-bike speed work that we're doing, and then work on encouraging people to use it and providing education. So we're on the first part of that right now. The next couple of years, even the next 3 to 4 years, we're anticipating a lot of these big gaps are scheduled to be built and completed. This includes the bridge, the I-89 East-West Bridge, Spear Street, some Dorset Street work, and Williston Road, I think, is all in that time frame. I think some of those big, they're all looking to be done by 2031, but a lot of them by 2029. So it's pretty exciting times. The items in our work plan, Erica, our liaison, really worked as a scribe, and even as we were filling them out, she said, I'm not sure they're gonna go for all of these, so some of these might get bike racked, and that's fine. We wanted to share with you what we thought was really important, and I think getting these paths completed is important to us. The Penny for Paths funding comes up for revote in 2028, and we'd like to have something to show for it, something for the voters to really see. There have been a few projects, the RRFBs have been put in place, the crosswalks have been put in place. Those are good things. People really want to see a more comprehensive, usable path network. So that is one of our top things that we would like to see completed. The next thing when Bob and I were preparing is we really felt like the e-bike ordinance is important. You've had people coming in with concerns. We've had people with concerns. I think the group that came up with the plan did a really nice job. Andy Brombaugh has sketched out some great graphics, and we're getting ready to order signs. And we will need this council to look at the ordinance suggestions and pass those ordinance suggestions. I think that'll also help.
So the Chief Brault and Colin have been starting to do that. But it's important to get those ordinances in place and updated just to support the education and the signs that we're putting out. So it's key that those ordinances be updated by FY27 at the latest.
I think my other thing that the group agreed we really need to name the bridge. It needs a nicer name than the operational name. I've advocated for naming it after Lavinia Bright in the past, Bright Bridge. That's my personal opinion, but the group also felt like for an iconic bridge, it needs a nicer name, a better name than the 89 East-West Bridge.
And as far as priorities go, there's been some discussion whether capital projects are going to be on it in the future on the FY27 PPNS document. Last year there was about 15 capital projects that were listed, and so we think it's important that the city list, or the city council list on their priorities, the Spear Street path along with the crosswalk at the end of Songbird, and then the path on Dorset Street. Those three right now are scheduled to be done in 27, and we think that they should be on the list as a priority, just like Hubbard was on last year's list, and some of the other TIF-related bike and ped projects were on.
Bob, could I just ask Jesse a question? Do they need to be, Jesse, or are they kind of, because they're in the queue as capital project, it's kind of overdetermined?
So it's a great question. There's not a formula or a science to this process, right? This is a process that we iterate over time. The city adopts a 10-year capital improvement program each year during the budget process, or you all adopt a CIP. That CIP has, 120 capital projects on it. I'm making that number up, but somewhere around there. A lot. So obviously we do not list all of those in the policies and strategies. How I've weighed that in the future are capital projects that are a new piece of infrastructure to the city, or a capital project that's going to take up a significant amount of staff time through grant writing, easements, partner development, TIF administration, those kinds of things. So again, it's not necessarily a formulaic science. It's is this something that the leadership team intends to report on and, track? It is certainly a conversation that the committees and the council can have over time of what elevates to that policies and strategies list.
But I guess Bob's concern is that if it's not on the priority list, maybe it doesn't get priority. But I take it that is not the case here, that we know that the projects that Bob articulated are getting priority. They just don't maybe meet the threshold you're articulating, significant staff time, etc. So that not being on the list doesn't mean they're not priorities that are going to get done, with due haste. Is that
right?
Accurate?
They're still in the CIP, but
It's just that the ones that are listed will get done because they're on the list. So just
well, in theory,
that
all
way.
of the CIP projects in an adopted fiscal year are still getting done in that adopted fiscal year.
Okay.
That is the intent.
There's
Just to
Can
set
I
your
ask
mind at ease, I don't think that that's because they're not listed doesn't mean they're not as important or prioritized. It just means they, as Jesse said, maybe they don't need that extra attention, that they're kind of a glide path.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
you hear our request. There was two other ones.
I have a quick question about
Oh,
that.
sure.
Sorry. Is there any risk that the fact that they're not on the priorities list for 2020 or for FY27, is there any risk that they would be sort of potentially pushed aside by a new raft of priorities, in which case we may want to consider
Well, I guess I would say until the council has an adopted FY27 work plan, all is up for debate. And Erica and Tom, if you want to articulate this a different way, feel free. You know, I think we have a very hefty capital improvement plan. You all have allocated a lot of money to that. Capital improvement projects, as we've seen, have a lot of variables associated with them, whether it's, you know, again, grant acquisitions, right of way, permitting, things like that. So it is true that capital projects don't, you know, start on July 1 of a year and end on June 30th of a year. However, the projects that are in the FY27 CIP with allocated funding are intended to move forward in FY27. I know Erica and Anna have also started to do some work about crosswalking, and actually Paul crosswalking the policies and strategies document to the CIP and to the city plan goals to really tell a more comprehensive story about the progress we're making in a year.
And don't forget one
Just-
of the
just-
consent agenda items was to award the contract, right, for the for the crosswalk.
The so another thing that we want to point out that we are going to work with DPW on is to help develop and update the winter maintenance plan for bicycle and pedestrian, because it's an area. And just one last one was working with the DPW again on standards related to bicycle and pedestrian. We've had comments from the public where they see, for instance, a new intersection created at the bottom of Swift and Shelburne Road because of Chase Bank, and you see that it's very curved, which makes it less safe for pedestrians and bicyclists, instead of making a right turn. Those type of things, we just want to explore that. So that's also in our work plan, whether it makes it into your work plan.
Bob, can you just elaborate on that a bit? So, because I don't know, like what does the city do now? Presumably, there's a set of standards, national standards that the city uses and looks to, that professional engineers have reviewed. I'm just wondering, like.
I just happened to look at, because it was someone brought it up at our meeting, last meeting, from the public, and then I went down and I looked at it, and you have to almost it's crazy when you look at it for a pedestrian trying to cross Swift Street.
But are you
there.
thinking like the city would have kind of bespoke standards? Like,
Right.
I mean, I don't know, Tom. Do we have to follow national standards? Presumably, I'm not. Just trying to understand.
It's not a criticism. It's
No.
just,
I know. I'm not. I'm just exploring. I'm just trying to understand what you'd like to do, I guess, and what we already do, just to make sure. I just want to understand it.
Good evening, everybody. Tom DePietro, Public Works Director. So we have geometric standards for roads, for new roads that are getting built, right? And they're built to those standards. In Bob's example, so this was an existing intersection. There's private development on the one side and not necessarily on the other. So we did not have the private developer, in this case through a DRB process, go through and reconstruct that entire intersection. They just sort of worked with what was there. That is certainly a project we could undertake in the future. Does that generally answer?
I'm sorry. So there are kind of no national standards for how, say, shared use paths get built. You're saying it's just kind of adjunct to the road and it follows the road. Is that?
We have standards for shared use paths, sidewalks, roads in the city. Yep. But again, it's for new or sort of reconstruction. They weren't redoing that intersection as part of their private redevelopment of that lot on the corner.
Oh, I see. So when things get redone, we
There's
follow
only
these
one corner.
national standards.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
another example would be at the end of Market Street, where the new light is. It was pointed out again from the public that it would have been great if the line for the left turn lane was a little further back, so that when people who take a right on red down Heinsberg Road can see if someone's crossing the road. And that's going to be done, because the next time it's painted. It's just those type of things. They should almost be standard.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It just, I guess I have, I don't know, maybe I'm a niggling concern that there presumably national standards that professional engineers look at, and to get down in the weeds and write something bespoke just feels a little awkward to me. I don't know.
I'm going to chime in here. I think it's reasonable to look at the safety of what exists. If that's, I think if I'm reading you correctly, that's what you're suggesting.
Right.
Particularly with regards to things like right turn on red, which is known to be very hazardous to pedestrians and cyclists. A lot of people get killed in cities. A lot of pedestrians and cyclists are killed in cities due to right turn on red. There's data on that. So I don't think it's unreasonable to, I don't know what the lift would be though. So, I mean, are you requesting that we make this one of our priorities for the coming
It's something
fiscal
to look
year?
at because we want to get ahead of it so that we don't continue to build new intersections where we, for instance, where we don't have sort of that a checklist. And I'm sure there is one. They're just a few of those items have come to our attention through the public, which seem to be valid.
I guess, so is it rewriting standards? Is like maybe reviewing projects?
I think it's reviewing and maybe updating. And I think as Tom had mentioned, we've definitely gone through what new growth, like what new streets would look like and new intersections. I think the difference is maybe updating how we approach reconfiguring or repaving and adjusting or considering the bike ped concerns when updating old intersections that already exist.
So you review projects, not necessarily rewrite the code or the standards.
You would
right?
kind of want you would want to make sure the code includes language to describe kind of what you would want for bike and pedestrian. So like Bob was talking about the turning radius, if you have a place where you don't have big semi trucks coming through, you can have a tight turning radius and that makes it safer. If you have to account for like Lowe's getting shipments, then you need a wider turning radius because those vehicles need those kind of turning radii. So it's a matter of, I think, writing some of those things in place so they're thought of earlier rather than later. And I think kind of almost, I don't know how it fits in, but we have the bronze level bike friendly city status from American League of Cyclists. And one of the things in the report card is they tell you like, this is what you need to get to the next level. They talked about a complete streets plan. I don't know that this quite fits in with that, but it might be a way to kind of adjust everything and making sure that it follows national standards. We're not looking to make new things, but just making sure that we've got everything as updated as it can be. And there's definitely been some work on it. I think DPW had worked on they recently have another copy of their standards that they've done in the last maybe 6 months. I don't know that we've looked at them yet, but they've been looking at them too. And Erica I don't remember exactly what the timing was or what they put in the content in that document, but they're looking at it too.
I have a quick question. It may be more to Jesse, but we do not have a naming policy yet as a city, and it's been on our list of priorities and strategies. And I don't know the answer to this question, but maybe you folks do. Is it the responsibility of the committee to be proposing names, or I didn't know if that was, it's on the list, so I didn't know if it was assumed.
That was definitely me personally feeling like we need a better name. The committee has agreed. We've not made a formal motion to that effect, but the committee has agreed. My understanding is that there's going to be some work done about naming for other streets and other things in South Burlington, but I think the bridge was specifically excluded from that. So I don't know. I think my understanding is that it's up to City Council to name it, or to figure out a policy or a procedure for how to name it.
Yeah, so this is not something you've charged the committee with historically, and my intent is to bring you a naming policy or the start of a conversation of a naming policy at your next meeting.
But we did vote on a name that we had wanted to suggest to the city. Yeah, we
Oh,
did
good,
voted
okay.
at one of our meetings.
I don't remember voting on it, but
It
I
was
just liked
your
it. I liked it.
recommendation.
Bright
But
Bridge.
if
I
there
liked
was a
it.
generous donor with $3.5 million, might make a difference, right?
Oh, that would be the federal government of all places.
Any other questions?
So let me just say, I'm liaison to Bike Ped, and it is an amazing committee. You guys under your leadership, Hobble and Bob, it's just the committee. It has so much energy and there's so much commitment, and it's really a pleasure to listen in on the discussion. So thank you. I have one question for you, and I raised this briefly, and I'm not sure whether there was discussion, but so my understanding is that at least for the lights along Dorset, the lights have the facility now to change the timing, so that if, say, right where it works now, is the pedestrian presses the walk button, or a bicycle presses the crossing button, and they'll get an opportunity to cross in their cycle. So they may have to wait, for 3 or 4, and they'll be waiting there, 2 minutes. And if it's raining or it's cold, it could be a long time waiting there while everyone else is sitting in their warm or conditioned cars. And we have the facility to change that, to preempt the cycle for the biker or the pedestrian. And it wouldn't cause anyone to wait more, right? Everyone's still going to wait that period of time for that walk cycle. It just moves it forward, right? So it won't cause any more traffic. It just moves it forward. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that. And I'd love to put that on your work plan to pilot something like that, and one of our intersections. And I can throw out Kennedy Dorset as a great pilot, but I want to throw it out there and ask for your thoughts.
Let me just point out that we're over 20 minutes on this segment. And
Okay.
So, but for a future discussion, or as part of your normal, their agenda for their future meeting, you could talk about that?
we can talk about. I don't know that I would put it on a policy priority, but we can certainly take it up as an item, because I think it's just important to really think about how the pedestrians and the cars interact with each other to keep things moving. And I'm not well versed enough to know what maybe the downsides of that are. And I would want to think about it as a whole system.
That's fair. That's great. That's exactly what.
Driver patience is the downside.
That's kind of what and also I feel like there's every time you start and stop, there's inertia. So I think it would stop traffic, and it stops the entire stream of traffic, because I think it's timed now that if I only notice it early in the morning, if you are actually going the speed limit, you will get a green, and you hit a green light, it'll be green pretty much the whole way through, because it's actually timed properly. But if we start messing with that, I'm not sure how it would flow.
But
we can add. It's worth asking, and I like the idea because I really want to go first every time.
Any other comments? Otherwise, are we going to receive these at the end, or do you want to do one piecemeal? Do you need an action to receive them, or just?
No,
just
the
receive?
committees are just presenting them to you, and for your opportunity to have a conversation with them. You'll take them up again at the working meeting, the Policies and Strategies working meeting.
Right. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Going on to item 8, which is the FY27 Policy Priorities and Strategies Committee presentation from Natural Resources and Conservation. Come on down. Good evening, gentlemen. Make sure the bright green light is on, and don't forget to identify yourselves.
I think we're good.
Good. Yeah, pull it close though, so you both.
Am I on? Yep.
Okay.
Larry Kupferman,
John Bolsange.
Natural Resources and Conservation Committee. Our chair, Jessica, is at home and was not able to tune in. We asked her if she was available tonight, but she is not available. Just quickly, our current work plan. I want to just talk a little bit about what we've done in the past, just for a minute. We in the past, recent memory, or my recent memory anyway, we were inactive with the ash tree removal plan back when, and offered ideas about treatment versus removal, and I think that was that was met successfully with city staff, and the idea that perhaps some ash trees along the way could be saved with treatment. We continue to work with tree canopy ideas. City canopy is a focus of the committee. We, of course, are involved with the consultants and the open space plan. And I just want to mention that our committee has, for the next year, has broken itself into working groups. So they'll continue to be working on urban trees. We have a group working with herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers, and best practices around those ideas, noise, and wildlife. So we have a group interested in noise and the effects of our noise on wildlife. And then best practices around meadow management, and we look forward to working with DPW staff on managing the meadows, that the city meadows that exist, and so on. So that's just sort of a brief outline of things that we've worked on.
Okay, so I'm going to just quickly give you an update on where we are with the tree plan. As Larry said, we divided things into two parts, things we're doing this year, and then things that we're going to focus on next year. So it's two parts, 26 and 27. Regarding the tree plan, we really, and we call it an urban forest. And we got that way because we worked with Nick Gardy, who was great to work with. And we thought bringing in our arborists to help us define what it is we could do would be the best way to begin. And Nick helped us write our current and ongoing best practices.
Hey, John, can you turn your mic on?
Bright green.
Bright green.
With a big voice anyway, but
Yeah.
you know.
Could you hear my first part?
Yes.
A little bit now. Now it's better. Yeah, I'm sorry. Bright green, yeah. Like your vest. So we work with Nick, and Nick has things that he really wants to do. He's an ambitious and just a very thoughtful and knowledgeable person. He wants to keep. We have 6,575 trees. He wants to keep them alive and healthy for this year, and he wants to assess all the trees we have in the city, which would be every 3 to 6 years on a rotation, look at 1,200 trees a year to do that. Replace trees as they are removed, either, as Larry said, for the ash borer or just injuries and things, and then fulfill. We have 883 places where we need trees. There's nothing there, vacant sites, and he'd like to replace that with the funds from the vacant tree replacement capital funds, and plant new trees to increase our capacity. And that's ongoing now, and he wants to keep doing that. For best practices in the future, we'll continue to work with Nick, I think. He said, you know, he's as you know, a department of one, so he would love some help. And I imagine the budget time will come with a hopeful request for at least some assistance, because as our population grows, the urban canopy needs to grow, and he wants to maintain all those 7,000. As he counted them, he has it all counted with drones, 7,458 trees. He wants to track the number of them, work closely with Branch Out Burlington, and work closely with Rutland in those cities that have good urban canopy management plans. So that's where we are with the tree plan this year and things he wants to get to next year.
John,
yes.
does the silver tags, does that mean they've been injected?
Yes,
Okay.
the silver tags are one that have been treated, and they're on that, I think, 2-year cycle. You know, and there's a.
Thank you.
The second one, we also divided this to herbicide, pesticide. We actually looked at House Bill 26 and Act 37, which is the state language that you're supposed to be following for application of fertilizer, and they get into all kinds of things about when to do it, that amount of things. But there is Vermont law pertaining to fertilizer, and it's golf courses, as we know, are exempt from this. I figured that, but fertilizer cannot have has zero phosphorus in it, and we're going to the practices to let UVM test that. To do this kind of work, we'll be working with Nick, but also probably with DPW, because they're the ones in parks to help us with that. Fertilizer needs to be swept up immediately, can't be applied between April and October 15th. No turf fertilizer may be applied within 25 feet of any surface water, and this law took effect in 2012. So we use that to get to our best practices. And we have simple things that we hope to do for private landowners, like raise the blade and leave clippings in the lawn, aerate your soils, get your soil tested, try and use organic fertilizer, and comments about nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. All those things are a part of our best practices. They're good for us to have here in the city, but they're also, we'd like to make recommendations for private homeowners and their property as well. In terms of pesticides, there are Vermont laws on pesticides that you can't put them out within 500 feet of Lake Champlain. You can't mix pesticides and fertilizers. They're not to be put on any public fields, any parks, schoolyards. This is all the kinds of stuff that we'll be working with DPW on. I'm sure they know this, but...
John, what about common areas and HOAs?
Yeah, that's a struggle. I live in one. And those common areas, you have to get, the whole board has to agree to do it. You know, we just did a thing with herbicides and pesticides, but because there's common area and then there's private area, associations have to go at it as a group, and you get pushback. People want it fertilized, people don't want organic, people want synthetic, you know, it goes back and forth. So we'll have best practices out there for people and send those out to HOAs and private homeowners and just say, listen, this is what we recommend. You know, that's part of our plan here, because we can't dictate on the private property, but DPW can certainly do the things on our public lands and our parks and things like that.
Does that include herbicides as well?
Yes. Yeah, both. So that's where we are with that. And again, we've divided into two parts this year in 2027. I think it's neat. We'll go as far as we can with working with the staff here at City Hall to make that work. So those are the first two. And Larry, I think you can talk about the others.
I think the new one for us this year is meadow management, and we had some good input from Steve Como about it, and he brought that idea to us, and we didn't actually during the winter have a chance to visit the meadows as we wanted to, but now that spring is here, I think we'll do some outdoor, just having a chance to visit them and come up with some ideas about the management. Really consists of some people think bird sanctuaries and possibly working with the Audubon Society about what possibly could happen. But it's Hubbard and Wheeler have expanses of meadow that this is an interesting idea to look at and to come up with best practices of how to manage them. So that's sort of a focus that we'll take on in the next year. And I think that was it for me, John, actually.
Noise or anything?
I don't have a lot to talk about in terms of the noise. It's the noise and wildlife is how can I put it? It just hasn't been the thinking on it hasn't been developed well enough to. I mean, it's something on the work plan, but it needs a few more people involved in that discussion. So it's on the work plan, but I don't have a lot of information about how it's going to move forward.
That's where we are.
Larry, for the meadow manager, presumably that would include,
Sorry,
for meadow management, presumably that would include, say, addressing invasives, like maybe replanting native shrubs, trees. Is that what you have in mind, or
at
something
this
else?
point? It's an inventory of what's there. The invasives, from what I can understand, are not really part of a management plan, other than maintaining a certain level of grasslands, as opposed to forestry or the perimeter of a forest where the invasives are more available. So it's a study at this point to come up with those, just what you're talking about. Invasives and meadows, it because the grasslands are so dense, there's not a lot of invasive don't take hold as much. But if it's determining how often you mow, so that in fact you maintain a meadow as opposed to reforesting, and that idea of keeping it from becoming a meadow into a forest. And so there is some management in that regard, but it's mostly around the mowing practices.
Okay, so not to include, say, recommendations about planting natives, trees.
Well, not trees. I would think in the meadow is an open area for grasslands, really. Yeah.
I guess in my mind we have an area, Hubbard, right? And the question would be, what do you do with it, right? The natural areas, what portion stays a meadow, what portion may become something else.
Right.
And I guess I would hope the plan would be broad enough to encompass the entire parcel, and then make recommendations about the pieces.
Yeah, I think we can look at that kind of discussion. We haven't had that yet because clearly it's not just all meadow and forest. There's a blend. Like Wheeler's a blend. Wheeler has some trees, more meadow, some wetlands. It's got all kinds of things, and you got to balance it out. That type of conversation we haven't had seriously yet. On the committee hasn't, but there's all kinds of things to include in the word management, and the management might be not just getting out invasives, but if it is replacing them with things that are native, but we're not infringing on too much of the meadow. Few spots like that. All that's up for discussion, Andrew. It is, and we'll address those things.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, because there may be a recommendation that, if it's 50 acres of meadow, that best practice would be to maintain 30 as a meadow, and rewild 20, particularly along the river corridor with cottonwoods or other kind of natives that are that grow well, right, in riparian zones.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure the question you're asking is broad enough to encompass best practice for the parcel.
One of the things we do, we want the meadow to be able to honor all kinds of wildlife in there. Not just a meadow for the butterflies and the mice and whatever else you want to have in there, but it's got to have bird sanctuary. It's got to have rodents. It's got to have a little bit of everything. And if we can blend things in there to do that, Andrew, it would be a better habitat area as well. So
being on the liaison to the NRCC, I will say that this last year the NRCC has become incredibly active and very ambitious. They've got a lot of great ideas. Meadow management plan, or looking into meadow management, is different than park management. So meadow management is the areas that we want to keep meadow. How do we take care of them? That's sort of what the meadow management portion is. Overall management of the park, what stays meadow, what becomes transition, etc., is a separate question from how do we manage our meadows. And a lot of the work that they're thinking about is work that isn't currently on any work plan, which they may do as preparatory work so that when the Park and Rec plan is done and we're looking at meadow management, they've got information so that they've got a leap on getting a plan together. So some of what they're doing will be part of our strategies and priorities plan. Some they may continue to work on separately from that if it doesn't involve staff time. But they are looking at the whole comprehensive piece, and the meadow management is specifically about how do we take care of meadow, if that makes sense.
John, I have one other question. I'm sorry, Beth. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, it's a quick one.
Yeah.
With the state's rules about not applying treatments on lawns within so many, was it 500 feet of Lake Champlain?
yes.
Was there any other restriction about borders with stormwater ponds?
No, I didn't see that
Which
in the
then
law.
drain directly into Lake Champlain. eventually.
Yeah. Uh,
So that really bothers
point,
me. the
because
fact that,
tributaries
you know,
are
my
any
HOA,
tributary.
right? They apply treatment right around the edges of the stream.
Yeah.
I just wonder if the state.
Well,
had
let me look into that.
Okay.
I'll go back through the law. It's H26, and I'll look at it again closely because it said
I mean, those are simple things that HOA can look at and say, we don't want it treated around the stormwater pond. If you're going to do the housing areas, and maybe the common areas, but get each HOA to kind of look at the facts and figure out what they want.
we have
to do.
talked about the tributaries, potash, and the other that flow into Lake Champlain indirectly. It could be 2 miles, but it's not 500 feet.
Right.
It's still this. Well taken. Point well taken.
Beth?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So you mentioned that you were potentially going to have in your work plan, it sounded like it was still a little bit nebulous, something with regards to noise and impacts on wildlife. You may have already done this and I'm just not aware of it. I'm wondering, would there be bandwidth on the committee to also look at light pollution at night? Because there's pretty good guidance out there about that, and I don't think people are aware of it. Would that be too heavy a lift to... I don't know what others think of that, but as sort of an related.
We haven't thought about that in all honesty, but we understand what light pollution can do to wildlife and to residents near it. We'll think about it. No, we haven't. Hasn't come up.
There's a lot of good guidance out there, and
there
I
is.
wonder all the time why people leave their lights on all night long. They think it's safer, I guess. I don't know. Our house is like a morgue at night; it's just no light at all. So I always wonder why people waste their electricity. Anyway, and disturb wildlife. Just a thought.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for all your work.
Any other comments, Elizabeth? At all? You're good. Okay. If there's nothing else, thanks very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you,
I
and thank
appreciate
you
all
for your work.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Work plan. Thank you. Let's move on to item 9, which is the FY27 Policy Priorities and Strategies Committee presentation from the Sextons. Come on down. I hit a word that I hadn't seen before, cremains.
Yes. Well,
Is that did you make that up?
Oh no,
That's a real word. Well,
it's a real word, and
good to know. Is your microphone on?
It is. Okay. So
Remember to identify yourself too.
I wanted to ask, what's your procedure? You just want me to present it?
Sure.
Okay, great. John Simpson, I'm chair of the Sextons Committee for the City of South Burlington, and we have prepared a rather detailed plan, which you have in front of you, but I'm going to hit some of the highlights and hopefully stimulate some questions and comments. Number one in our work plan is to welcome the new cemetery administrator who you have put in the budget, and we're hoping that the personnel will move on and get us somebody fairly soon. So that's great. And then we also will be asking you to approve the rules and regulations, which we drafted last year. And it's been with you and I guess in the legal office, and it'll need to be vetted there. And then hopefully you can adopt it as change or send it back to us for corrections or whatever you want to do. But before we can really start operations at the cemetery, we'll need to have those in place. And then, perhaps, if all goes well, you'll lift the moratorium and we can start selling plots again. We're also going to continue to oversee the beautification of Eldridge. Before the end of this fiscal year, we hope to have a large amount of shrubbery and trees planted in the north end of the cemetery at Eldridge. We've got an RFP that we've sent to Public Works is working with us, and I just got back from a short vacation. I don't know whether any proposals have been received, but in the next few days we hope they will, and then that between us and the Public Works we'll pick a contractor and start seeing some of those shrubs and trees put in the ground. Then in the new year, though, however, we're going to have some additional shrubs donated by the UVM Horticulture Farm and Branch Out Burlington, which I've arranged. And then we anticipate perhaps buying tulip and daffodil bulbs for fall planting. And that all would be done with volunteer work days and so forth, and by the Sextons.
John,
Yes.
I want to interrupt you just for a second, just to point out to the public and to any counselors that don't know that there was a very generous donation given to the Sextons for the beautification of Eldridge. So the work that's being done there is being done with funds that were provided by a citizen who made the donation to the cemetery. So that's pretty exciting that's.
And I've been in touch with her recently, and she is really happy with the planning and is excited to see what we get done. We're also, a big problem for us is to solve the water problem. There is no water at Eldridge Cemetery, and there really isn't any source that's feasible for any reasonable cost. Tapping into the city line, very expensive. We'd have to go under Airport Parkway, and then perhaps working with a neighbor, but that's also going to be expensive. And so for this summer, when we have the fresh plants in the ground, we're going to have a watering plan involving delivery of water by a commercial water deliverer, and having some tanks that will be placed around the cemetery within a hose and whatever the capacity of the pumps are, so that by the time we have a meeting tomorrow, a subcommittee of the Sextons to finalize that plan. So we're going to have water when the plants get in the ground, and have it through the summer. And then if we have to have more water in next year, which we probably will, we'll work that out then. We haven't spent all the money, so we're holding some back for issues like this. Then we want to have, and now we're talking about in the future, after the moratorium is lifted or in anticipation of it, develop a plot layout plan for cremated remains and mark with plot markers. We would like to start selling a lower cost opportunity for people who want to bury cremated remains, and be able to buy plots that are a suitable size that under the regulations, but it would be a way for people not to have to spend a huge amount of money with us to get a place to bury. And ultimately, I think we're going to want to buy what's called a columbarium, which is a structure that has drawers in it, and the cremated remains go in the drawers, and then names are inscribed on a plaque on the front of the drawer. And that's really the best solution. But they start, good ones start $10,000–$12,000. So not going to happen until we start to put some more money into the city Sexton budget by selling spaces in our cemetery.
Not unless you get another donation.
Well, we could get one, yeah, I suppose. We're going to continue to upgrade. That's it for the main things we're going to do at Eldridge. And then the Shelburne Road Cemetery, one problem that we've found and I know about, we haven't really measured it, is that the water table is fairly high there, which could be a detriment to having traditional burial at that cemetery. We need to have a test that will determine where the water table is, and then definitely want to remove the invasives that are there, work with the Department of Public Works on the dead or diseased tree removal, and fence line pruning. And if we ever get a lot of money, we'd like to replace the fence that's broken down between the cemetery and the parking lot back of the gas station by Olive Garden. So it's definitely in need of some help there. We're going to install signage at both cemeteries to propose rules for cemetery access. We've designed the sign. We've got it at DPW to on their work list to finish for us, and then we'll have them put up. And it just to keep people from camping, which you had some problems with last year, and to just moderate the behavior inside the cemetery. We're going to plan to repair remaining damaged monuments. We'll probably have a work day some point in the summer, and hopefully bring in the Vermont Old Cemetery Association again with their experts. And finally, this is something that's important to me. I hope we can work with Recreation and Parks under their new plan to consider a pocket park next to the cemetery. There's a little patch of woods there. And what that would get us would be a new access to the cemetery off of Fayette Drive, which is a road that runs by Lowe's there. And what that would do is allow us to close the access from Shelburne Road, which if you've ever tried to make that turn either in or out, it's quite dangerous. And we'd like to be able to say, to pair up a little pocket park for the folks who live not too far away in all those apartments down there. That would be adjacent to the cemetery and would give us an access. So that's kind of pipe dream, but it's something that the Sextons are going to be ready to work with Recs and Parks.
Thanks, John. So it essentially sounds like Shelburne Road is not really a choice place to be selling plots in the future because of the water table problem, but
We want to determine that for sure, though.
right, but you want to maintain it and make it look nice and enable access to it a little easier than what you have. But Eldridge is where the focus is going to be for.
Yeah.
For
Of course,
moving
there's another alternative, which we had a program earlier in the year on green burials or natural burials. And they don't have to be 6 feet under. They only have to be 3 feet under. So could it be possible that we could open up Shelburne Road if we got it, long-term plan, but that would be a use for the open space that's there to continue to allow people, and I think this is probably there are a few people in South Burlington who would favor a green burial. It's a growing trend.
Any questions for John?
No question, but I want to just say again, we're a blessed community. Lori and I are liaison to Sextons, and I honestly had no idea what you guys did before I became a liaison, and under your guys, John and Peter. This committee does so much work, and they're so committed, and there's so much to do, and I have such a deep appreciation now for our cemeteries and what it takes to keep them going and the history. So thank you, thank you. You guys just do an amazing amount of work, and this work plan is evidence of that.
I have a quick question, John. You had mentioned a site called SEM site, I think. Do our two cemeteries participate in that Find a Grave? Is everything documented through that Find a Graves website?
I believe so. Is Chuck in the room? He's our expert on that area.
Well, Chuck's coming up. I'll second what John said, what Andrew said about this committee. And also, there's been a lot of conversation about green burial in the committee. And one of the things they talked about that may move forward sometime was looking at some of the forest properties and some of our city open spaces that could potentially be forest burials. So that whole sort of direction of burial is something that they've talked about, and some exciting things going on.
Yeah, so to answer your question, many of the burials in those two cemeteries are documented on Find a Grave, but Find a Grave is, my understanding, is populated by the public. You know, it's not a, I guess, a centrally managed site. So there are gaps. Not everyone is certainly documented, and there are inaccuracies also that you'll find. People have come to the wrong conclusion. They'll create a record. But it's, so you have to kind of take it to the next level to be sure that you're dealing with accurate
it'd be
records.
nice to make sure we have documentation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No other comments? Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Good plan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing what develops. Let's move on to item 10, which is the same presentation, but this time from Recreation and Parks. Come on down. Make sure that green light is on.
I am. I'm seeing two green lights.
There you go.
Do you have any preference?
And pull that microphone nice and close.
Okay.
Identify yourself.
Mike Szymanski of the Recreation and Parks Committee. I assume that you guys have had the opportunity to review these various reports already. So I'm happy to skim over this, quote unquote, present it, but engagement might be an even more productive way to go if you would like to. So on our report, we've got 4 work items. Development and reinvestment in parks and acquisitions. Number 2, expand equitable programming and participation and accessibility. Number 3, advance the Park and Open Space Master Plan. And number 4, community engagement and collaboration. Development and reinvestment in parks and acquisitions. The thought has been crossing my mind. We're in the middle of our master plan. We're, collaborating with Natural Resources Committee. And a lot of this stuff has to do with land use, in my opinion. I don't know if others would share this, but we're a city. Our open land resources become scarcer over time. That scarcity makes them more valuable, important to different stakeholder groups for uses that they have in mind. And I hadn't thought about it at all, but you just heard the Sextons offering a thought regarding maybe the location of a pocket park that might be present to a cemetery. So I'd like to find a way out. I'm not quite sure how it would be engineered or compelled, but we're currently collaborating with Natural Resources with the open space plan. So, we're in the same room together with that. But I think that we should find ourselves in the room more often with housing. I would think it would be a good idea, and I think that a lot of this data gathering has been done already. The open spaces in the city, the undeveloped parcels that are in the city, whether it's residentially zoned, zoned otherwise for open spaces, even the industrial and the commercial, you got a database. And then you have your stakeholder groups start weighing in on the importance of those properties. And you attempt to get more scientific about the prioritization of the unused land resources that you've got in your community. and you try to establish a foundation through that effort so that, when the time comes to have a conversation about a particular piece of property or land use in a certain area, maybe a lot of the heavy lifting's been done already, becomes less political. And there's alignment that may be in place already for some of these decisions. So development and reinvestment in parks and acquisitions, this kind of sounds like a tangent, but acquisitions, does somebody write a check? Does the city do a bond, or do you go into the open space fund? We know what the methodologies are that you can employ if a piece of property is identified that our city determines is important enough to take a run at and go after. Want to stop there, or do you want me to move through the rest of the presentation and then you can pop up?
Why don't you just
okay.
So,
all right.
What you're suggesting makes a lot of sense to me, Mike. But so, what you're suggesting to this data gathering analysis and to work with housing and continue your partnership with NRCC, is that fall under your first item? Development and
I mean, there's not a lot of elaboration that you find with the report that we have submitted to you. I mean,
but is that what you're anticipating is under the first item?
Well, I'm thinking that would be one place to go, where because when you talk about acquisition, does the city prioritize the acquisition of a piece of property for a park? Do they prioritize it as an open space resource?
You need data to
yeah,
know that. Yeah. So I mean, so it would make sense for me for maybe if you want to then elaborate a little bit on that first item to incorporate what you're describing here, because it makes sense. But wouldn't the master plan that we're doing now for parks, open space,
it should push us in the right direction? Yeah.
Be that data gathering exercise?
I don't know that. I don't know whether we're going to be getting to do that kind of a deep dive. I mean, it might be one of the things where, the end result of the process might be, let's do this. And that might be a pretty high priority item, that would come out of the master planning process. But, the process of getting that data in front of you, reviewing it, and then starting to have conversation about it, you could really bog the master planning process down, I think, with that kind of a conversation. So maybe, that's something that you identify as a goal out of that process. Just my opinion.
When you're talking about, hi Mike, when you're talking about acquisition, are you suggesting that we only look at pieces of land that are still undeveloped? Or, I mean, it seems to me that they're, in that process, we or you or whatever, whoever's work plan this, I mean, it would fall into your work plan to make recommendations. In the more densely populated parts of the city, it seems like there's a gap there. So I would think that maybe any kind of exploration of potential places for new parks or pocket parks might at least include, if not prioritize, parts of the city that are very densely populated and don't have access.
Yeah, and I also thought where you might have been headed with your thought too was that you might, the property that might be the solution for an agenda may be something that already is improved or developed as well, but you could identify and say, be fantastic if we could, add this to the piece that was next door. We could create something special. It might be a link between a couple of things. So that's where I thought you were headed originally. And I was going to say, good thought. And the thought you introduced as well. So, yeah, we don't want to limit ourselves because land is it's a scarcity. It's a scarce resource. They're not making any more of it. Good for that? For that one? Okay. So equitable programming, participation, and accessibility. It kind of speaks for itself. But one thought that had run through my mind again, just sitting here and before the meeting, and okay, what else could you add? And I would say that the location and the proximity of our recreational resources is an important way to achieve the equity that we're talking about trying to achieve. It's not just, okay, there's a whole bunch of metrics that you can use, to say, oh yeah, we're taking care of business. But I think one of the biggest ways of creating equity is for our amenities to be proximate to the different stakeholders and people that we serve. And the master planning process, the part that we've been through already, scratched the surface of that. We started to see on some maps, the proximity of our amenities and the absence of proximity in some parts of town. So that's an area that I think we can invest some time and effort in. And again, I say we should be collaborating. Should be more collaboration among the committees. I know everybody says that, but natural resources and recreation and parks, I think, have the overlap of our agendas is perhaps more significant than maybe some other agendas. And there ought to be a way that we can spend more time with one another to share our goals and priorities and see how far we can get. You come to a place maybe where you got a difference of opinion, but you can save a lot of time and effort by communicating better. So that's part of the space we're coming from there. Work item 3, I've already kind of referred to it a couple of times, unless somebody wants to talk more about the open space master plan. Excited about the new vendor, the new consultant that we have hired, having participated in the economic development master planning process. So looking forward to what they have to offer. And community engagement and collaboration. I think Adam Math is doing an amazing job with his programming and with the efforts at reaching out. I do see a lot of, different ideas being introduced, and they're being introduced and they serve different people. But we always know that we can make more progress. We can do better at every event. Maybe, there's a place where, there's a card. How did we do? Like you just went to dinner in a restaurant, how did we do? What did you like? So that kind of effort, though sounding kind of simple, I think is often overlooked. It's probably a piece of low-hanging fruit that we could achieve pretty quickly. And the people of our community deserve that effort so they can all be heard and, when warranted, listened to.
Is that annual survey, is that done on the web with so it's distributed via social media and people go through a long...
there have been surveys done, but I don't know that I'm familiar with an, quote, annual survey that has been done historically to get feedback from people on how we're doing. It's not a bad idea for, other agendas as well. But
proposal that they've put forward to actually start having an annual process like that. And it could happen on all kinds of different platforms.
Given the number of people that respond to certain types of solicitations, I think the highest number that responded in our history might have been back when they did the dog park thing a couple of years ago. But I don't know that exceeded 1,000 people. And we got 17,000 people in our community. And so if you're in an environment where stuff's happening, you may very well generate more feedback than you would from a regular survey.
Okay. The comments?
So I completely agree with you. My observation is that the community would benefit from rec and parks, collaborating more with natural resources, and that's going to be something that we talk about I'm just going to throw something out here though while you're here, and I probably should have asked John and Larry the same question. Would it make sense, say, for every 4 months, every 6 months, have a joint meeting with your two groups, and where
Yeah, I mean, what you take the first step. So what do? Okay, does it sound like a good idea to have a meeting together? All right, let's schedule one. See how it goes. If the results are encouraging, then maybe you say, hey, let's get together. Well, it's just going to be another 4 months, another 6 months, whatever. But let's do it. Our Rec and Parks Committee, we used to have more liaison activity going on where we would attempt to assign each member of our committee as a liaison to another committee. That's probably a strategy that, should be reconsidered across the board as a means to an end to, have eyes and ears in the room if you want to know what's going on with somebody else who you share an agenda with or have some overlap with. So that kind of stuff is good.
So yeah, I mean, piloting a joint meeting makes sense to me. I don't know if John or Larry's still here. I don't see him. But
a few during this master planning process, I was actually kind of surprised that that we were not invited or compelled to get in the room at the same time in the course of the process so far. I thought it would have been constructive to do that. So hopefully there's at least one or two occasions with the balance of this process where we can find ourselves in the same. But have somebody create a good agenda that covers what everybody would like to prioritize and talks about.
Two chairs should probably reach out and set that up. It would seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. Have I used up my time?
You've used up very effectively. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your service, and
thank you.
See you in the coming year.
All right, we're going to move on to item 11, which is discuss pickleball at Szymanski Park. I think, Jesse, do you have an intro for this?
Sure.
Some background information?
So the council asked us to put this on the agenda for tonight's meeting for your discussion. So the background I'm giving is as a background we provided back in 2024 when the council last discussed this. So just some history about pickleball at Szymanski Park. Pickleball lines have been painted on those courts since 2011. Operational since then. It was fully updated and modernized in 2022 with a funded capital project. It's the only courts we have at public parks in the city of South. They are the only courts we have with public parks in the city of South Burlington. So in 23 and 24, I'm going to talk a little about traffic and public safety, and then a little about noise. So in 23 and 24, the police department received complaints about speeding in the neighborhood around the courts. At that point, the chiefs dispatched officers to do a traffic assessment and found no violations detected. In May 2024, there was a speed study done. It's posted at 25 miles per hour, which is the lowest we can post per state statute in Vermont. They found that during that period in May 2024, they were averaging about 900 cars a day in the neighborhood, and the average speed was about 13.7 miles per hour. So in 2024, you asked Adam to do a time-limited survey of noise. So for 2 weeks in August in 2024, he went out and did those noise measurements. Right outside the courts, the average noise measurement was 63 decibels. In the parking lot, it was 46 decibels, and in the exterior of the park, 51. Again, those are the averages in that 2 week period. So we
Jesse, where was the 51 taken?
At the exterior of the park.
So that was
the fence at Stormwater Pond?
It was pretty much like right on the almost stormwater, like on the other side of the basketball court.
But on the on
the
side that
Szymanski.
faces the courts, not on the other side, not the
Yeah.
far side of the stormwater court.
No, yeah,
Stormwater
on the side of the
that
court.
faces the court.
Yeah.
Okay, so then maybe it's another, I don't know, guessing 50 feet until you get to the first homes in Stonehenge. Okay.
Roughly.
Adam, would you mind quickly introducing yourself?
Yep. I'm Adam Math, Director of Recreation.
So then the other part I wanted to add is a piece of history. So Andrew's we've gotten complaints through these meetings and through other communication to Public Works about Andrews Ave and the traffic control there individually. So that is part of our traffic evaluation request form that you all adopted a couple of years ago. That Andrews Ave was scored according to that matrix. It fell about halfway down the list of priority projects and has not reached the level of action yet. Between July 11th, 2025 and July 18th, 2025, we collected traffic volume data in that week as part of that regular traffic evaluation request. During that time, we saw about 100 vehicles a day on Andrews Ave, going an average of about 20 miles per hour. And that's what I have to report. Data historically collected. We have done no additional research this spring, as you have not directed us to.
And the only change that the council asked for was a reduction in the time by 1 hour.
Back in 2024.
And that was from 9 p.m. to 8 p.m., right? Is that the recollection? Yeah.
And the morning time was.
Yeah, so we
moved both of them?
We shifted both, so it's 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. now.
Right. Okay. All right. So
Can I ask one more quick
ahead.
question? Thanks. Adam, can you tell me what's the process for locking and unlocking the court? Who goes in the morning to unlock it, or it's just
the
open
courts
all the
are open.
time? It's
Yeah,
just an honor system. Okay, thanks.
Did you want to ask about the lights too?
I didn't actually.
Did you want to ask about the lights? Like what function turns the lights on and off?
So, I mean, it's a press function, but the lights still are on because with the conversation in 2024, you still can play tennis post 8 o'clock.
Until
10 o'clock.
Until 10 o'clock.
Yep.
So you keep pushing the button and
Yep.
the lights, but at 10 o'clock the lights go off.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Good. Any other update questions or no? Okay. A lot of people in the audience and some people online as well. Can I have a show of hands of who would like to speak, let's say, in support of pickleball at the park, just so I can get a sense of how many we have? So, and you would like to speak tonight? Oh, you may or may not. Okay, you might want to. Oh, so go raise the hands again so I can see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, how about 10? How about on the other side of the equation? Who else would like to? So we have a few here. Okay, good. All right. So in general, when we have this many people, we like to keep your comments to 2 minutes because we got to keep going with our agenda. But if you have a spokesperson that really is the central figure, or are you have a decentralized approach to this? Right. Well, why don't you come up and start?
Tim, I have a
first
quick question.
Go ahead.
Adam, I took pickleball lessons through the rec department a couple of years ago, and nets were set up at veterans. So what was different about that, or what changed that is not usable?
So right now that wouldn't have been likely when I was here. The courts at veterans are currently for basketball courts.
They were the portable. I didn't know if they were marked, but nets were set up.
Yeah, they're the.
And there were 2 nets set up.
Portable nets that were set up at veterans for that. But currently, we do have like clinics, pickleball clinics, as well as 2 separate pickleball leagues, and they're both done at Szymanski.
So I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. So
right now, we don't use the basketball courts at veterans for pickleball.
But it was used in the past.
For like a pop-up clinic, I would imagine, but not for like day-to-day usage.
Okay.
Is there still the court in the middle of Veterans Memorial Park is that gone?
That's gone. Yeah,
The
one in
the asphalt or the
yeah, that
concrete's
one's gone, and that's where the turf field
Okay.
is going to be gone.
Okay. Good. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to comments? All right. So good evening. Is your bright green light on? And make sure you identify yourself. And go ahead, please.
It's Giovanni. You got to push the button.
Press the button. And,
like it's on, but it's not.
and
Is it on now? Can you hear me now?
Pull the mic closer to you.
Sure.
yeah, there you go.
Giovanna Garino, Stonehenge. I'm going to allow my time to everyone who hasn't spoken up, who has very important things to say.
Hold on.
My,
We're going to try and.
they can't hear me? My light is on. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll just talk louder.
They're
I have a
fixing the
soft
volume,
voice.
yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm going to give my time to everyone that needs to speak tonight. I only have 2 things to say. 1 week of study, 2 weeks of study out of 8 months does not reflect what's actually happening. And 13 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour is a ridiculous, false situation as far as speed. Number of cars could be true. I don't know. Jane's a little shy, but she's with us as well. She's my neighbor. The second thing I want to say is when you have these clinics at Szymanski, where is everyone going to park? Because that's on the weekends when we need parking spaces for our family, friends. And it can go down 5 blocks. I think someone sent pictures of the parking situation. And I'm going to sit down tonight and let everybody else talk. So thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
I'm shorter. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, my name is Phyllis Marcel, and I live on Andrews Avenue. And I want to preface this by saying I am not opposed to pickleball. I think it's a wonderful sport. I'm so glad so many people are playing. But I have this unpaid position of being the highway patrol. People are they start on Worth Street, go around the corner, and then it's a very long stretch from the bottom of Andrews until they get up to Szymanski. And people are speeding, going to Szymanski, coming back from Szymanski, and it's dangerous. We have every age of person that is out exercising. There's an older couple that uses a walker. They would never be able to get out of the way if a car was near them. There are children riding their bikes. People are walking. People are running. People are walking their dogs. It's just not safe. And I want us to prevent something from happening. So my proposal, of course, is to install speed bumps. Because we've tried other things. We've put up signs. We've asked people to slow down. There's really, the sign was there, the rolling sign, but as soon as people saw how fast they were going, obviously they slowed down. So we really need to come up with a positive solution so that people can play pickleball, but not speeding up and down the streets. Thank you.
And just to be sure, hold on a second. So there are no sidewalks on that street, right?
That's correct.
And are there sidewalks in any of those streets in the neighborhood?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I know that some of the older ones don't have sidewalks.
Do you also perceive parking as a problem in addition to speeding?
Wait, I couldn't hear you.
Do you also perceive parking as a problem?
Parking is definitely a problem. I live in the middle, so I see all the cars, but I think parking is, that's an addition. But speeding is the biggest one for me.
Okay. Come on down.
Hello,
Okay.
my name is Mary Mahoney. I am not part of the neighborhood or people directly affected by the severe noise levels or very limited parking options at Szymanski Park. I'm here to support the people who are very much concerned regarding these issues. I think pickleball is a wonderful sport, but it should not put a neighborhood at risk. There are other options for moving the courts to a more practical space. Therefore, as a resident of South Burlington for 45 years, I'm asking for your support in understanding the serious need for this problem to be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Another one from the neighborhood want to speak? Come on. Yeah, come on down.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good evening. My name's Tim Warren. I live on Worth Street. I've been there for 25 years. When the pickleball courts first went in, I like everybody, supported them. I think it's a great sport, a great use of the resource. It's a wonderful park up there. But those pickleball courts have changed the environment significantly. And what you're not going to do, regardless of moving forward, is you're not going to cure the noise pollution. If you are near those courts, and if you're on whether it's Andrews or it's Laurel Hill or you're up in the condos, it is pop, 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 pop. There's the hooping, the hollering. It's not every day, and you've got some wonderful numbers there, but those numbers don't reflect the reality of the months where that's a high use area, and many of us have just given up on it. I don't even walk my dog up there anymore. Just to go up to that corner is challenging on a weekend. And those are the times when we in the neighborhood would like to use the park potentially. I can't imagine being a young person on a bike or a family with a stroller trying to move around up there. So I consider it dangerous. I live on Worth Street. I happen to be on the street where people have figured out there's one less stop sign to get up there. So on the weekends, I watch what I call the pickleball parade. And it's just certain times of the day, you just watch the cars go back and forth. That's really what it is all about. And what I would hate for the city to do is get into the sort of sunken cost fallacy that, hey, we've got the courts there, let's figure out, dump some more money in doing this or that, when that's never going to cure the issue of the noise pollution, and you're never going to fix the parking. Speeding cars or not, you just have no parking space up there. So if you can resolve those two issues, great. But otherwise, I think there are better places for those courts. Dorset Park, I mean, that great area, but you plopped pickleball courts right in the middle of a substantially residential area, and this is bound to happen. So as much as I support pickleball, I'll leave with one anecdote. If you ever want to buy into the villages, read the comments. They'll tell you never buy near the pickleball courts. And that's what you've really done here, is you've dropped pickleball courts right into the middle of residences without really any future consideration. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Tim, you're awesome. You're my neighbor. Thanks for your service, by the way, and I'm psyched that everyone's here because we're having this discussion. I used to live on Andrew Ave.
Your name is?
Oh, Ben Russell. I used to live on Andrew Ave, so I can also appreciate, and I had young kids on that street, and even back then, there were speeders, so I totally get the people that live on that street. I definitely understand it, and it was worrisome having young kids there. But back then, whether it happened seldomly, it didn't rise to the top, or maybe for some it was an issue, and I love the idea of speed bumps and anything we can do to slow people down. The issue is when the pickleball courts came in, it's not neighbors, because I live just a couple streets away and I play pickleball, right? So it's not our neighborhood playing pickleball that's the issue, and recreation is awesome and we all want to do that. It's the leagues and the big groups that are starving to find outdoor courts. So you have the hordes of people coming in. I don't know that this is the platform to come up with a solution. I just believe it can be more creative than closing the courts, whether it's speed bumps or actually whether it's not having, basically, I mean, like at Oakledge we were talking, they now don't allow parking along the side, and if you park there, you get towed. So if there's only 2 spots there, the groups can't come, or you don't allow Szymanski Park to be on these apps where they, sign up to play. I mean, there's got to be some solution, but to me, neighbors playing pickleball and tennis and going to the park with their kids is reasonable. But absolutely, and I live on Imperial like Tim, and I used to live on Andrews, so I know what it's like to live on Andrews, and I also see Imperial's an artery coming in, and so yes, I see on the weekends the hordes of pickleballers flying through. So completely agree that's an issue. I just don't think you need to close the courts.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. You first, and then the gentleman in the back with the green jacket.
My name's Amy Lipson, and I've resided. Oh, sorry, I'm too short.
And state your name again, please.
Amy Lipson. And I've been a resident of Stonehenge for 15 years. And I used to take the kids down there. We enjoyed the park. We did some tennis. My number one concern is foremost the noise.
Is what?
The noise level.
Noise.
It's jarring. And I'm not even next door to it, but the sound travels up the bike path. You hear it walking through the neighborhood. Yes, changing some of the hours has helped, but it's not going to resolve the overall noise issue. And the courts were originally designed for tennis. So max what you'd have, if you did doubles, 4 on a court, potentially 8 people max. And now with the pickleball and the leagues, there's a lot more noise from the pickleball. And I apologize, I didn't take into account the traffic issues in the neighborhood. I mean, when I enter through Stonehenge, they're lined up. And it is a city street, but they're lined up because it's easier to park and then walk in. It is very difficult to get through the park in a weekend or high pickleball time in the summer. So I agree that families around the area are probably very limited to the use of a park that's supposed to be a neighborhood park. I don't think putting noise barriers around, changing the hours anymore will help. I think, unfortunately, we have to find a new home for these, especially where there is better, more adequate parking and facilities like up at Dorset Park. So I have to confess, the noise is, it's beyond jarring, and it makes it not a pleasant experience to be out in your yard. And I can't imagine the young kids, and the parents there having to put them through this when there's a huge tournament going on. So I think the only solution is find a new place for these courts for the neighborhood's benefit, traffic, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Come on down, please, sir.
Hello. I'm Richie Abbott. My wife and I live on Andrews Avenue. We're across the street from the sign our little neighbor made to try to get the people to slow down and be respectful of our street and neighborhood. I remember one day walking Sparky, our previous dog, through the park, and lo and behold, they were repainting the courts out of the blue to pickleball. Thinking, oh, okay, we'll see how this goes. It is very loud, and we have way too much traffic. It is an improper place for these courts to be. When we bought our house, we bought it because of the street. It was a nice, quiet street, dead-end street, wonderful neighbors who we've known our whole lives. I grew up over on Logwood near the airport, and Laura in, where were you, Laura? Suburban Square. When we moved in, we had wonderful older neighbors, a mix, and some younger families. Unfortunately, as time goes on, we lost our older neighbors, and they've been replaced by younger families. So in our block, which is the last block before the park, the corner lot on Deborah has a toddler and a newborn, 6-month-old. Next to them, in between us, they have a kindergartner, 5-year-old, and a second grader, 7-year-old. Then they're us old farts. And then next to us on the other side, we have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. Across the street, with the sign that was made, whose birthday is tomorrow, she's going to be 7. She now has a newborn brother. We all have to deal with this every day. The last house before the park has 3. I believe they're all preteen, just before preteen. When session is in, the street is full of cars. When it's not, and even when it is, all of these kids are still trying to play their normal play, whether they're electric vehicles, their scooters, their bikes, their basketballs, their lacrosse sticks, whatever. Something bad is going to happen, and unfortunately, Phyllis, I don't agree with you on the speed humps, because people are just going to go up Sandalwood and Scottsdale, and they're still going to come around. The key point is this is an improper place for these courts to be. I coached youth baseball in South Burlington for 10 years and played all over the county and all over the city. Every park in the city, everywhere else in the city has dedicated parking. We have 3, maybe 4 spaces at the park with a luxury portalette. It's an improper fit. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Let's go online for a second because we have somebody with their hand up. Jean, can you hear us? Hold on. Jean, it looks like you're muted. Jean, are you there? You're still muted. There you are.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Jean, what's your last name?
Hi, I'm Jean Hunt, and I'm weighing in. I don't live anywhere near pickleball courts, or I would probably have to move. I'm calling because I so empathize with the noise issue. I have a friend who lived over near Letty, and he actually did move after having lived in Burlington 15 years. It was literally driving him crazy. And I have a friend in San Francisco whose husband is working on a patent for a quieter pickleball, the actual ball, because it's an issue in many places across the country. But if this were a dog park, would it be allowed to just go into a neighborhood because of noise? Like, I can't, the imposition on neighbors from something that's entertainment for people. I mean, I've played sports all my life, but the sound of it is so annoying. And to just impose that on people. I mean, I back up to Interstate 89 and it's constant noise. And I live with that, but pickleball to me is way more irritating when I've heard it. And again, what else would you allow to impose on a neighborhood with this kind of noise? I just don't understand how that's okay to do. I mean, if I went to pickleballers' houses and made tons of noise outside their house at different hours, would that be okay? I mean, there are noise ordinances. How does this not fit into that? Anyway, I just really empathize with the people who have to live near it because I could not. And I live in a very densely populated neighborhood, but people are so respectful and quiet to not impose on other people. And I'm just really grateful for that. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jean. Who's next? Anybody inside the auditorium? Good evening. Remember to identify yourself.
Good evening. Sure. My name is Allison Herrig. You all have gotten my emails already. So you know my concerns about the pickleball courts in Szymanski Park. I'm not going to continue on what everyone else said. You've heard it. It's pretty bad in our neighborhood right now. We measured it. My house is 500 feet from the pickleball courts. I can hear pickleball from every part of my house. Even with windows closed, I can hear it. Over TVs, when I'm trying to read a book, doing anything, all I hear is pickleball all day long. The other problem, which Jean, I loved her comment about respectful, that her neighbors are respectful. I've had numerous situations where I have had to police the pickleballers, which you all thought that they would do that themselves and they would play through the hours of 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. But at least once a week, I have to walk out to the courts and say, hey, I'm sorry, pickleball is no longer happening right now. At least once every 2 weeks in that time, I'm met with aggression, with verbal abuse. We were called the neighborhood Scrooge last week by someone who was very upset that I told them it was past 8 p.m. when it was 8:01. And this kind of disrespect is really unfortunate, and it's not something that should be tolerated in our neighborhood. I do appreciate that about half of the pickleballers are respectful and that they really just want to play and they're not trying to cause any harm. But at least half of them are very entitled, rude individuals who come into our neighborhood from outside and do not respect the rules that you have put down. So I'd appreciate if you would do something and try to mitigate this problem before something happens.
Thank you, Allison. Anybody else want to speak tonight? Oh, we have somebody online. Hold on. We have Paul online. Paul, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, this is Paul Sal. I live on Laurel Hill Drive. I am not far from the park. I can hear the pickleballers. Two things I would like to make. I know somebody mentioned about measuring the decibels of what they could hear, and I think the furthest one was 50 dBs, and that may not sound, very loud, but what I would like you to do, if you don't think that's annoying to your peace and trying to have a peaceful house, during your next meeting, I would like you to obtain a recording of the pickleball games going on and play it during your whole meeting with this pong, pong, ping, pong going on during your whole meeting. It might only be 50 dBs, but see how you like that for 3 hours going on. The second point I'd like to make, the gentleman alluded to, it's a big problem in Florida where pickleball courts, tennis courts were converted to pickleball courts, and any condo or house that is adjacent to the pickleball court, their value has dropped substantially, and people do not want to buy those units. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Yep, bye.
Anybody else in the room? There's somebody else. Go ahead. Yeah, let's take the room next, and we have somebody else online. Come on, come on down. Yeah.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay. Hi, James Herrig.
I don't think that's on. Try pushing the button.
Oh, it sounds like it's on.
Bright green. Here we go. Yep.
Okay, turn it back on.
Hello. Hello. Is that better? All right. James Herrig, Laurel Hill Drive. I would like to say that I think that, it's great that everybody loves pickleball. Pickleball players love pickleball. I think that's great. I think it's awesome that the park is being used. But I agree with the sentiment that everybody has said. I really don't think it belongs in our little park. Our park, we moved in 2020 into Laurel Hill Drive. It was so quiet. My father even came by the one time and commented on how quiet it was there. And you don't hear the road like you do. We used to live on Bacon Street, and it was awful to just hear the traffic going by. You don't hear that anymore. But what we do hear is the pickleball, pong, pong, pong. And it's not like, I don't even know why I'm describing this to you. You all know what the sound of pickleball is. It's not a uniform, regular ticking of a clock. It's random. And that, it can just really grate on your nerves. You want to go outside and read a book, and you just want to be quiet and enjoy the peace that you have, and you can't. And it's awful. I think that it's great that people are using the park. I just don't think that pickleball is right for that park. I think that pickleball is right for South Burlington. I think that another location would be much better. And if you think about it, if you prep, I owe my wife for this idea, but if you prep this and you plan it out, you could make a very nice area with great parking, great facilities, not a porta potty that, by the way, smells awful in the summertime and gets vandalized. And then you could actually use it as a positive thing for the city to host tournaments, to host training stuff. I don't know. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. Paula online. Just hold one second. Paula, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. How are you?
I'm just making sure yeah, okay. I have a statement I guess I'm going to just read. It'll be easier that way. My name's Paula Nenninger, and I am a South Burlington resident. I raised my 2 boys in South Burlington and used the parks a huge amount of our time, going to playgrounds and such. As they got older, I stopped using the parks altogether until I discovered pickleball at Szymanski, and it brought me back to the park. It's a real community there. I've met new friends. I've stayed active. I've connected with people, with all kinds of people. And I think the parks are meant for everybody in South Burlington. We happen to live in a neighborhood that doesn't have a park. So I feel like Szymanski can be my park too. Pickleball is one of the few activities that brings so many people together. And I think it's what our town should be working towards. I definitely understand there are concerns, and I believe we could come up with a solution that works for everybody without closing off the opportunity for many of us to play pickleball. Having a place that we can go and be outside and be active is very, very important for me and many of the people that I met. I would ask that you consider preserving access to pickleball. Maybe while something else is being worked out, or to try to come up with a solution for all of us. I often bike to pickleballs, and maybe, other changes can be made with the parking, but I would just ask that you respectfully consider how many people enjoy using the park for that reason. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you, Paula. Please, sir, go ahead.
Evening, Chris Lamoff. And I agree pretty much with everything everyone said in favor and against. In listening to all the different committee presentations tonight, most recent one, the Recreation and Parks, the gentleman spoke about equity and proximity. It's fairly apparent that right now the residents of the city have neither of those. Parking and traffic at Szymanski is clearly a problem. Availability of other options in the city are none. I think Veterans Park would be an ideal place for multiple more pickleball courts. Parking's not an issue. Traffic's not an issue. Proximity to housing is probably the best option for the city because of its location, and depending on where you locate said pickleball courts at Veterans, you're at least a couple hundred yards away from residents. One thing as far as noise is concerned, I played at Airport Park in Colchester this spring already. They have erected some solid, what appear to be rubber barriers on the chain link fences that go all the way to the top, like 10 feet up, that are designed apparently for noise mitigation. That may be something to consider, but that doesn't alleviate the parking and traffic at Szymanski. So, my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you very much. One more? One more. Is anybody else after? Okay, 2 more. All right.
Good evening.
3
My
more.
name's
All right, we're going to call it quiz set. 4 more. And unless you have something new that you want to give, new kind of testimony, if you just want to like say, I, ditto these people, I just want to make sure that, because, Okay, but go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Derek Senior, and I've been coming to Szymanski Park for about 3 years, playing pickleball. I hear you. We hear you. This pickleball came into your community in 2022. Didn't ask for it. It just appeared, and it changed the neighborhood for you. And so we get it. For most of us, we're aware of the situation, even more so, given further publicity here. But we really want to be. I think the answer for us is not necessarily to close these courts. Maybe it is down the lane, but right now we really want to work with you and become good neighbors. Most of us who play pickleball are very aware of this problem. We've talked amongst ourselves, and most of us are responsible. And we want to make sure we hold other pickleball players responsible for what's going on here. To that end, we have some concrete proposals. We actually started a petition, started yesterday. We've got 215 signatures on it. It's really a neighbor's petition, and it's really for you folks here. And we want to propose 4 things that could happen. I have that written out and some paperwork for each of you. First is speed bumps. Put speed bumps on Andrews Avenue. Again, I've been coming here for 3 years. 2 years ago and even last year, there were just tons of signs along the road, asking people to slow down. All of us who play pickleball, at least most of us that I'm aware of, are aware of that situation. A lot of that had disappeared. I'm not sure that mitigates the problem. You obviously still have an issue there, but I'm hoping that speed bumps may help the issue, as well as being more vocal on our side to make sure other pickleball players are holding to that standard. So that's number 1, speed bumps on Andrews Avenue. A parking map posted at the courts showing all available parking areas. There are other parking areas that exist around Szymanski Park, and those can be better utilized, we think, to mitigate some of the congestion regarding parking. Another option, arbor vitae plantings along the fence as a natural buffer that maybe grow over time. It won't mitigate a lot of noise, but it could certainly help. And then the other one is a pickleball good neighbor pledge, which I also have here. 10 items. I won't read them all today, but given what some of you have spoken about, I think it'd be incumbent upon maybe the council to put up a code of conduct, maybe with 10 items that we could all agree on. We're going to be very, very supportive of that we can hopefully encourage other pickleball players. Maybe some of them aren't as binding to some of these rules, and make sure that they stick by this code of conduct to hopefully reduce some of the issues that you have. And with that, I'll close. If I could, I'd like to give these documents to you folks. And this has both the well, I think that's something we could work on as well. I think, again, with more awareness, hopefully come more solutions. But I think our players would be, very open to trying to reduce.
You should be talking to us,
some of
not
the
to the
noise.
audience. Okay, just so you know.
Yeah. So I don't.
Do you want to hand us something, because your time is almost up? Thank you. All right, and who's next?
Hi, my name is Nancy Pollock, and I live about 150 feet from the first court. My backyard, I can see right there. I love it. I wasn't prepared to speak today, and I did not realize the sentiment of so many people about the noise. It doesn't bother me. I don't focus on it. I've lived in the house for 26 years now, so I was there before and I'm there now. I am a pickleball player, but I'm on medical leave for a long time, so I have to listen to the court and not be able to play, which is not fun for me. I was here last year, 2 years ago, when we had the meeting, and the parking issue. The parking is definitely an issue. And some suggestions were made for people to park up at Overlook, over at the Laurel Hill. I live at 152 Laurel Hill, so I'm right there, right behind the park. I do know a lot of people walk down from Overlook. I don't see a lot of people parking on our street to walk through the path. I am aware that some people do park. Some people that I play with do park on the Stonehenge Drive by the Stonehenge entrance. I do think speed bumps on Andrews Drive and many other streets in that Laurel Hill neighborhood would be helpful. Speeding is an issue, not just for the park. I guess I'm a little upset to hear that some people think that half the pickleball players are rude and disrespectful. I don't find that to be the case. I'm sure there are some. But I find immense joy in listening to people very little people to older people enjoying the park for all it has to offer, including pickleball. And I really hope that the city can find some compromise with the people who are having certain issues with the courts and the location, and with the people, for the people who are actually enjoying all that that park and bike path have to offer. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next? Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Carl Grunwald. I had some prepared remarks, but I'm just going to mention a couple of points. I would hate to see those courts closed down before we have other courts ready to play at in South Burlington. Pickleball has become a huge part of my life. I'm old. There aren't a whole lot of things I can get out and do that allow me to compete.
You're not that old, by the way.
Yeah, so I'm going to be 76 next month. There aren't a lot of other sports that I can get out and do with other people that allow me to socialize, make new friends. So this is really an important thing for me. I get that if I lived in that neighborhood, I might not feel as strongly about this, but I'm listening to the complaints, and it sounds like part of it is maybe a lack of enforcement of the speed limit there. Speed bumps are great, but if we maybe had a patrol there, have someone get a ticket once in a while, that's going to be a deterrent for people to speed in that neighborhood. I don't know if that would be acceptable to the people in the neighborhood, because one thing that I always make sure that I do between 20 and 24 miles an hour when I go through the neighborhood to the park. And I found that someone will be tailgating me as I'm going up to Szymanski Park. And I think it's another pickleball player, but it's not. It's someone else going through the neighborhood, and they don't think that I'm going fast enough. So I think that some of the speeders are probably not pickleball players. They're other folks that are just going through the neighborhood. And yeah, again, taking away the pickleball for the older folks. I mean, pickleball is great because it's across all generations. You see 5-year-olds and 75-year-olds out there playing together. So it's a wonderful game. And to take that away without having another place for us to go, I think would be a strain on the residents of South Burlington. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, one more. Anybody else? What?
Hi, I'm Elle Barden, and Chris Tudor wanted me to read this to you, but there's no way I can read it to you, so I'm just going to give it to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, yeah.
Do you have copies?
Do you want to summarize it, Elle?
Thank you very much. Oh my God.
No? Okay.
All right. All right. Okay. One more?
One more.
That's
Could
it.
be more.
This-
I don't know.
I'm closing the door. Door closes.
The door closes. Once we had a discussion about a year.
Can you identify yourself first?
Jerry Spring. I live in South Burlington. We had a discussion with a few people last year about parking, and I think one of the suggestions was that people should park it down at Federal Park and walk, or at Overlook, either one. And I think you probably got to limit the people that can park in that small parking lot by Szymanski Park. People going there for exercise, so walking from Federal Park's not a huge deal. And I think that won't solve the noise issue. But I was also at Airport Park last week, and I saw the sound barriers they put up, and I think they work. I can't testify that technically if they do, but I think they work. The only other suggestion I make is that I think long term, I like the proposal about putting in a lot more courts so they can have a tournament, and you can't do that there, but you can do it at Veterans Park.
Thank you. Is this the last one?
No promises, Tim. So
Come on,
Todd
I
Denninger.
we can't do this all night. That's the thing, right? So if the sentiments are always the same, pretty much, we got to keep going.
I appreciate you folks coming tonight, and I think it was just really important. Or at
Can you
least for
identify
myself.
yourself?
Sure. Again, Tim. Todd Denninger, South
Your
Burlington resident.
wife just testified, right?
She did testify earlier. I think it's important just for everybody here to recognize, at least for myself, able to bike over to that park, develop community for myself in that park, added to my own sense of self-being, well-being, as well as physical well-being. I can't think of another reason for a park than for what exactly I just described to you for what it's done for me and for this sport. I'm sure we can find a way for us all to work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Thomas Langen. I live off Pheasant Way. Couple points and then I'll be done. I know folks that are making housing decisions, moving into Stonehenge and Spear Meadows because of the close proximity of the parks. And then the other point I wanted to say was that when we usually get done playing around 6 o'clock, 6:30, we find that a lot of teens and young adults are coming in to play. So they're using the park even more than we do, I think. But it's an opportunity for them to play in the park and use the park. The last thing is I think there's an impact, a social impact, which I think a lot of people have touched on, but there's also an economical impact too. The number of people playing pickleball in the community, you look at the surrounding communities, Davis Park in Shelburne, they added 8 new courts to get people to play. Charlotte 2 years ago added courts in their park. People have mentioned Colchester. They put up the sound barriers and windscreens to help. It's growing, and we've got to find a way to work together. The other economical benefit, and it comes out of a group that I play with, a social group that I play with on Friday nights. So we started 2 summers ago, and we just bring snacks to the court and exchange. You know, people would bring something to share. Then it got to going out to the old post for drinks afterwards, and I never would have done that if it hadn't been for that group. And that group has grown larger, and we now go to concerts, we go to other social gatherings, and we continue to play pickleball. So don't take away the only access that we have in South Burlington to pickleball. Free access. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just say one?
Sure,
One promise.
as long as you identify yourself.
Okay, my name is Cindy, and I'm just here to just say I live in Williston. I play at Rosendale Park. I come to Szymanski, and the joy and fun and good times we have at Szymanski is just, I can't really explain it. Why I drive to Szymanski instead of Rosendale, and there's a community there that I've become a part of. And I think one thing I ask is that it seems like there's you guys, and then there's us, the pickleball players and the residents, and I completely 100% understand the concerns you have. I have grandchildren, and I think about that every time I drive down that road. And I am one of the ones that go way under the speed limit because I respect what people and young kids and families, and I want to do the right thing, and I do the right thing. The other thing I'm thinking is, could we possibly schedule a time where the residents could come when the pickleball players are there and just meet and talk? And have you guys, how many of you people have played pickleball at Szymanski? Well, why can't we
So make sure you're
schedule
talking to
right,
us,
why,
yeah.
can we schedule a time that we could have a community?
Well, that's an idea that, you know, we can talk about. We're gonna have a discussion after this
Okay.
closes. So
All right, that's all I wanted to
Great.
say.
thank you.
Thank you.
Last call. Nobody online. Okay. All right. Well, you're gonna have to go to the podium to ask the question, and you're gonna have to identify yourself.
I don't know what the rules.
Identify
Nancy
yourself.
Pollock.
Again?
Nancy Pollock. Pollack. I'm just like thinking about the parking thing and the speed thing. Is there, like, I don't know what the rules are for the park and how it was made, and like, are there rules where you can take small sections of a park? Clearly not on the end of Andrews. There's absolutely no space, but in another spot where there could be some access to parking. And I don't know what the rules for, you know, when the parks were designated for the town. Because I keep thinking about the different entry points. Farrell is definitely not an option. That's a really long walk. But anyway, I was just thinking about that because there are other entrances, and I didn't know if there was any way to include some parking in there to address that issue.
Thank you. No more? We're closed. Okay. So now it's time for council to discuss this. Where would you folks like to start?
I'll kick off with one thing.
Sure.
There's no question that pickleball is a great sport and that people love it and that it's a great community builder. Sir, I'll get this closer to me. There's no question that pickleball is a great sport, that people love it, that it's a community builder, that it's excellent exercise, etc. And I want to see that promoted in our city very much. One thing I think about when I look at our parks is that some of our parks are neighborhood parks and some of our parks are destination parks. And Veterans Park is definitely a destination park. It's set up for lots of people to come. It's got parking. It's got everything available for it. Farrell Park is a destination park. They've got ball fields. They're set up for lots of people to come and do things. Szymanski Park is a neighborhood park. It's surrounded very closely by neighborhood houses. And I would like the neighbors to be able to play pickleball. But this list that we got tonight, as I look at it, on these 200 signatures, they start out with Charlotte, Colchester, Milton, Williston, Charlotte, etc. I think it's wonderful. And that should be in a destination, a place that's set up to handle crowds to come and have a raucous, joyous time, which is not in the middle of a neighborhood. This is my perspective. And I think pickleball court or two in Szymanski makes sense so that so it could be a neighborhood park where the neighborhood kids all play and they play basketball, they play pickleball, they play whatever. I live in a neighborhood that has a basketball court and there's a portable pickleball net that gets put up. And I'm less than 100 feet from that court. And when it's used once in a while and the kids are playing and whatever, it's totally fine. If there were 4 courts there and they were playing all the time, I would go nuts. So please, we want to try and keep this, it's not a them and us thing at all. It really isn't. It's how do we do appropriately situate things so that people can enjoy their own quality of life and we can have the play that we want to have. And that's sighting. It's figuring out how to do it appropriately. I think Szymanski is not the right place for a destination sport, personally, and I think we need to do something about it. I've got some thoughts for things we could do, but I just wanted to kick off with that to begin with.
Sure, that's a good kickoff, Lori. I appreciate it. Beth?
Yeah, I'd like to, thank everyone for showing up tonight on, either side of this issue. It shows that there are, that there's a real interest in somehow making this work for everyone. And I think that's what, it's beholden upon us to figure that out. Obviously what we're seeing here are unforeseen consequences of putting the pickleball courts where they were placed. And someone in the audience made a really good point about sunk costs. We have a sunk cost here, and I'm really curious how much it would cost to relocate the courts, put up sound mitigation that actually works. I think we need to, and I'm getting to solutions here because we've heard all the arguments on either side of this issue already, articulated really, really well by everyone in the audience. So in terms of solutions, and I just want to say about the noise, we've got measurements of decibel levels, for example. I don't think that tells the whole story. And I don't mean this to in any way diminish what the advocates for the courts have said, but it's a percussive, repetitive, random noise. And I agree with Lori, it would drive me batty if I had to listen to that all day long for months on end. And I think that the city in long term has to consider the issues around noise in the city. We've, we've had other issues related to noise in the city in recent years. So long before I became a counselor. So, and the other point I wanted to make about the measurements of the speed, I don't think that tells the entire story either. Jesse pointed out that the state, the lowest speed limit allowable by state law is 25 miles an hour. That doesn't mean that it's safe. It just means that that's what's legally allowed. So I really do believe that we need to address that issue. And, I ride my bicycle through that area very frequently. And I have to say, every time I go through, the courts are full. Not every time, I don't want to exaggerate, I don't want to overstate it, but frequently when I ride through, the courts are completely full and there are cars parked on the street. So just not that my personal experience carries much weight, but I'm just saying that I'm sympathetic with that as well. So I'm wondering, are there measures that we can take to deal with the traffic issues, for example, and the parking issue, which is sort of a sibling of that issue? Could there be, in Burlington, they have resident-only parking areas. We probably have some in South Burlington. I'm not aware of any, but that's an option, and if you get a ticket out there, I can tell you from personal experience, it's $100. So that would very quickly deter people from parking on that street. I'm also wondering, should we, we're in the midst of, getting a Parks and Rec master plan underway. Should we consider ultimately relocating the courts? And as Lori said, just keeping that as a neighborhood park. It sounds like some residents are unable to get access to the court that's right there in their backyard. And I did a quick tally here. 83 of the people on this list are from our city. And I'm not saying that other people, I know we all have friends from other cities. I have lots of friends in Winooski and, for example, not that other people shouldn't be able to come and play, but if it's significantly diminishing the quality of life of people who actually live here, I think we need to look at that. So I'm going to stop because that was a lot. But again, I respect all the viewpoints in the room, but I think that we, as the city council, have to decide upon some durable solutions here that work for both parties. So thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Andrew?
Yeah, thanks. So thanks for everyone who came out. Some very powerful testimony on really on all sides. What I've heard though from folks, I can't quite grasp, because we've heard some folks that live nearby say it's not an issue. Some folks that live nearby say it's not livable. We've had emails also saying, those inconsistent things. I think it might make sense for us to hire an expert, a third party, to evaluate the noise, to let us know whether the noise from these courts is kind of consistent with courts that are cited in other municipalities, or are these courts particularly, are they too close, and therefore the noise is excessive, or are they kind of consistent with how other cities have placed courts in neighborhoods or near homes? I think it would be really helpful to get some objective third party feedback on that question to figure out how to move forward in terms of the noise. In terms of the speeding and the parking, at least now, while we're doing that study, I'd be in favor of speed bumps. Let's slow it down. I mean, that's like a no-lose proposition to put speed bumps. Why not? And I think the suggestion to direct folks who are at the park to potential alternative places to park makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people, I think, would avail themselves of those alternatives, realizing that there is a problem in the neighborhood. The parking is a problem on Andrews Avenue, and people would, I think, respect that if it was clear and they knew where to go. It's also kind of low-hanging fruit. Put up a sign, put up a map, star some areas, and suggest that people avail themselves of the alternatives, or suggest that people walk or bike or carpool, right? Sometimes people just need that suggestion, right? That that incentive to do that. So that's how I'd like to go forward. Let's hire an expert while we evaluate. Let's mitigate some of the issues we've heard.
Elizabeth?
Yeah, first off, I'd say typically it is not council's purview to engage in specific programming or departmental issues. Having said that, I do think the data that has been collected to date so far and the lived experience are out of sync. I think there are ongoing issues between having no sidewalks in the neighborhood, very little parking, really no bathroom facilities to speak of. And I think Lori's comment about the configuration of this being a neighborhood park, I think those issues are going to continue to exist without some intervention. I feel like I've heard about this issue enough from neighbors in the Szymanski area that I would like to see some relief given until there is a recommendation of a more permanent solution that would not include either all the courts at this park, but I do think there should be some immediate relief given.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I tend to agree with you. And we have some things with some dials that we can turn like pretty quickly, and Adam would have to say yes or no on these. But I mean, one of the things right now is that it's just an idea is that, the lights, you can push the button and it'll stay on until 10. If we cut the lights back till 8, that's a suggestion. The other suggestion is we drop 3 of the 4 nets. Right, reduce the demand. I mean, if there's only one court there, right, then the demand drops, right? So then there won't be a parking problem anymore, right? And then that gives us the ability to go in and do some more measurements. So, I mean, it sounds like that's the big problem right now is the demand is very high, and it is high at certain times, and so that causes the issues with parking. It also then increases the noise. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. I'm getting a sense from Beth and Lori that they want to take action. Elizabeth, you want to take some action. Andrew, you want to study it some more. But maybe we could go back to Adam now and ask if you had some ideas, or are you looking for direction from the council? What, so there's been some great issues
Hold
raised.
on. So Adam's brilliant. If you have great ideas and you'd like to share them, go for it. The council has decided to make this a policy debate, so I think you need to recommend the action you would like. I don't mean to shut Adam down if he has brilliant ideas, but I think the solution needs to come from you all because we're hearing such conflicting community sentiment.
I'm just asking, like, what things are easy to do, what things are, it's easy to drop nets and put them away, right?
But the process for that would be you guys propose some things and we will come back with a plan.
So
I have some suggestions.
Go ahead, Lori.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead and make a comment.
I just want to comment on some things that you said, Andrew, and I know, with all respect, I think that doing an objective analysis of the noise levels, it doesn't really, and again, this is not to, I think we need to figure this out in a way that's going to work for the pickleball players as well. But I think doing that objective analysis, sort of diminishes the lived experience of the people in the audience. I think that what they're telling us is real. I don't think they're making it up. I think that they're experiencing distress because of the noise, and it's irrelevant what the decibel levels are. So I just want to put that out there. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I think we need to come up with a solution for the parking and the noise. And the speeding, or the perceived
So
speeding.
with due respect, I was suggesting an expert tell us if the siting of these courts is consistent with other courts in other municipalities, or whether there's something unreasonable about these, that they're unreasonably close. So that's what I was suggesting an expert can help us with.
What I hear is, regardless as to whether these are cited similarly to other municipalities, I hear that our community has a problem, and we need.
But I hear conflicting information.
I know that. So. I want to start by repeating something that Elizabeth said, which is that, our purview is policy and Jesse's and staff's purview is execution. And this is sort of a gray line in some ways because we're saying, oh, well, let's talk about how things are getting executed. But I think from a policy level, we are looking at how are our parks used and what parks are community parks and what parks are destination parks. I think that's a big piece. In terms of looking at it, I think that we have a Recreation and Parks Committee that could be tasked with doing the research and the work that needs to be done to find out where in the city it's appropriate, what we can do, how we can fix it long term. Short term, I think that we should reduce the number of courts that are there for immediate relief. At our last 2 meetings ago, we talked about possibly delaying the installation of the nets. That didn't get voted, that didn't pass, but, and I know that there are programmed events that the Recreation Department has, and maybe for those events, if they are not excessive, all 4 nets can be up for those events, and then it gets pulled back so it's a neighborhood park when it's not having those events, and we can look at how and where we site things over time. But if I lived there, I'd probably want to say no nets until the solution is there. Maybe a compromise is that we have 2 nets, except when there are recreation events that are happening that require more than that, until we have solutions that really address the needs. So that's one proposal I'd put forward.
Would you be okay, Lori, with 2 nets while we study this particular location?
That's what I'm talking about, yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. It cuts the demand in half. People, and a lot of it is groups want to go and have a good time. Well, if there are only 2 nets, they can find other places to go have group fun. And I do know, my wife works with one woman who's a pickleball player, avid, and she says she won't play at Szymanski Park because she recognizes the impact that it has. And there are a lot of new courts around all over, so it's not like it's the only place. I understand it's free, but there are free courts in other cities as well. And to have Szymanski Park bear the burden of people coming from all over Chittenden County feels onerous. So I don't know if this needs to be a proposal that gets put forward and voted on, or how we move forward with this. And I would like to hear Adam's input if what I've suggested could be functional for the rec program.
Yeah, I mean, you could take 2 nights down, similar to what you guys are referring to. When it comes to like our programming, like we were discussing earlier, so we have a league on Monday night and Tuesday night. Those are the 2 leagues, and they run for 2 hours each night, which we do that. Other than that, we don't have any other designated programming. It's all open. We don't do you don't reserve the courts through us. You don't reserve the courts through Playtime Scheduler, which other people have discussed as well.
So that's 2 nights a week from 6 to 8. Is that right?
And you need the 4 courts for that.
Yeah, we have the teams for.
And is it problematic to take a net down and put it back up?
I would have to check with DPW on how quickly and easy you can do that. I don't know how quickly. I mean, they would have to then go there every morning on Tuesday morning and take the net down, 2 nets down, and then go back there on Tuesday night and put 2 more nets back up, go back there Wednesday morning and take 2 nets down. Also, another just additional element of it, people will play on the tennis court.
Without a net?
Well, I mean, they'll just use the tennis court for pickleball.
And play pickleball.
You can play pickleball on the tennis court, so that would be another one. So you'd have 3 courts going.
So again, that would be the requirement for rules being put up and saying tennis court is only for tennis.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess as far as like putting up and taking down, logistically, that wouldn't work. I mean, we would just have to run our programs off of
2 courts.
2 courts.
Okay. So
Are you already subscribed for that program and you need 4 courts, or?
Yeah, we have 12 teams for it, so.
And is there nowhere else that would be available with 4 courts for the league to play?
Not that we have courts for. Yeah, these are our only pickleball courts.
And the edges courts or other courts?
Those we wouldn't be able to use, or we'd have to pay for them.
You'd have to there'd be a fee for it.
Yeah.
Would that fee be more than the fee of putting up soundproofing around the whole nets or the whole courts?
No, I wouldn't think that. I mean, based off of 2 years ago when I got quotes, the soundproofing was roughly $20,000.
Really expensive.
So that's not going to be a price point. It would be. I highly doubt we'd be able to get access to those edge courts because they're being used, or the pop would be being used as well. What we would have to do for our leagues, if you took 2 nets down, is we would just have to put up like 2 portable nets.
Portable nets.
So the portable nets.
So you could use portable nets.
So we would have 4 courts that way, 2 real and then 2 portable.
Yeah. That seems like a reasonable way to go about it.
I'm also afraid that people might bring their own
portable nets.
But
I mean,
there would be signage saying that, except for times for rec and parks, programming, there's only 2 courts open, right?
Yeah.
So.
And this is, and from my perspective, this is a long-term project, and we need to provide short-term relief while we are figuring out how this is going to get resolved long-term, so our pickleball community can really play and enjoy the sport the way they want to, and our neighbors can have quality of life that they want.
Can I ask one more question about the lighting switch, right? I mean, so, and maybe this is a question for the neighbors. Before pickleball, was 10 o'clock okay for the last time that the lights can stay on to? I mean, that's when they go off at 10 o'clock. They never wasn't used? I guess you have to come to the podium so we can hear the answer. I'm sorry.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been there 34 years at this point, and my son was a basketball player, and he and his buddies might go down a couple nights a week. They played all day, but that decibel level is 40, softball,
Yeah.
You didn't hear it. So a couple nights a week, they might play till 10. Maybe 2 nights out of the summer, there'd be raging music and loud people after the lights went out, but nothing like what is happening.
So if we propose to have the lights go off at 8 p.m., we can't do that?
You could. The only thing, you don't need the lights to play until like 9
but at some times of the year, right? I mean, if it's dark, it's dark. You can't play.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So never mind. Okay. Great. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. So not an issue. Okay.
I feel that what Lori's proposed of reducing the nets by 2 will be that immediate relief, also to impact traffic and speeding. And that would be, to me, that would be the most impactful thing without changing other variables. But in the meantime, to charge that study of what are the options for where in the city and what a longer term plan would be.
And another question I have for you, Adam, when you're having league play, 12 teams are coming. Are they teams of 4 or teams of 2?
Teams of 2.
Teams of 2.
So, I mean, I think, which I do like to mention, when we do have leagues, a lot of people assume we're going to have masses, but it actually organizes the traffic. People aren't rushing to the courts to play. There's no one waiting additionally outside of those 12 teams to play. So it does help and limit the amount of people there.
My question was going to be, is there a way for you to communicate with those league members and talk about parking and maybe arrange it so that the people know who's parking at Szymanski and who's parking at Stonehenge, so that people don't come and then, oh, the parking's full and I have to go somewhere else, and so that we can spread that burden around and create more relief for the neighbors.
Prior to the league starting, we do send out an email. As far as like us coordinating who's parking where, that's not something which we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
But we do give them, hey, here are the different options: carpool, a bike, overlook, etc.
Good. Okay, thank you.
So, how do you want us to?
It would be great to have a motion.
Okay, so
Can I say one more thing? Because we talked about parking. I don't think we've really explored noise mitigation as a longer term option. You know, like, I mean, are we long term and to mitigate the noise? Are we exploring?
I think we're talking about that we'd like to have a long-term plan
Right.
looked at.
Are we discussing
but
that now or
we're
right
talking
now?
about
Okay.
immediate relief.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I'm
if
just
I have
asking
a
about.
motion to
okay.
drop 2 nets at the park.
Yeah.
We could take a vote on that.
Motion have drop 2 nets at the park, have Parks and Rec use portable nets for their league, and have appropriate signage that states that only those 2 courts are to be used for pickleball.
And friendly amendment to do a study to evaluate both the current site and possible alternative sites.
Well, I would very much like to see us task either the Rec and Parks Committee, which is a committee that somebody to do the deep work that needs to be done and it ties into the Park and Open Space Master Plan that's being done, and perhaps bring this to Civic Soul as well, and ask them to, as they're doing their review, look at this specific issue in relationship to our city, so that over the course of the summer and the fall, we get the information we need so we can figure out how to move forward.
Well, as long as they have the expertise, right? Because we might need a specialist
If we
to
do, we can do.
evaluate, again, whether pickleball, where it is now, is or is not consistent with how pickleball operates in any other place, and if not, where would we put it, or if it is, are there other mitigating things we can do?
So
very long motion.
Yeah, I don't think that needs to be part of the motion. I think that we keep it to the nets for now.
I think we should direct a study.
Yeah. So being new to the oh, sorry. Finish it.
Why don't we ask the Rec and Parks Committee to come back to us with a recommendation for how to move forward, and that might be a study, or they might have other information that they find for ways to move forward.
So we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Can somebody restate it?
Lori, can you restate it in
The
30 words
motion
or
is
less?
to remove 2 nets for short-term relief, to send a request to the Rec and Park Committee to come back to us with suggestions for how to analyze and appropriately determine how to move forward for long-term solution to this problem. And to put up signage.
Do you want to do the signage in the? Do you want to do the signage in the portable nets for the league?
Yes.
Lori, I might make a friendly amendment that we leave that up to the rec department on the tactical side. I think what we're saying is that find a way to allow the publicized program to continue and inform people that the other 2 nets are not available to courts.
Yeah, whether it's signage or just that information gets properly communicated.
Would this be the appropriate time to ask a question and make a comment? Or
Why don't you wait till we get a second? We don't,
Okay.
Did you second
I
it?
second, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, further discussion?
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm, fully on board with the motion, et cetera. I'm wondering, what's the timeline for this process? Because now we're having a negative impact on the pickleball players too, right? So I'm just wondering, we've reached like a half solution here, or quarter solution. So from my own experience, things can go on for a very long time. So I wonder, what's the process on the council for establishing timelines and guideposts for this sort of complex, multifaceted actions, so that we make sure that we're staying on track to do something that serves both the people who want to continue playing this sport and the people who are suffering from all the negative impacts on their neighborhood.
So I think that we're trying to determine a certain amount of relief tonight for that neighborhood immediately, right? And we're charging the Rec and Parks Department to the committee to come back to us with some sort of investigation and plan, right? And I'm sure that we're going to get feedback after this happens from various parties, and we will see what that contains.
Okay. It's not going to go away.
Thanks.
But we're taking an action tonight. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Can I discuss something?
Yeah. This is
Can I
not
add
an aye.
something?
This is a wait for you. Go ahead.
I don't vote.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, Lori, to take the lead as the council liaison with the Rec and Parks Committee to move forward that planning.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, ready for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. This is a small action. It's bigger than when we reduced the hours by an hour on each end 2 years ago. I hope this gives you some relief. We're going to find out what the effect is, and then we're going to go from there. So thank you for all of your feedback tonight. Thank you for coming for both sides. We're trying to maybe downscale the amount of pickleball there that fits into that neighborhood. This is the first step, okay? So I hope that you're a little happier than you were in previous meetings. So, and we're going to take a 5-minute break because we're all dying up here, I think. So, and other people are too. And thank you, Adam, for your time as well.
It'll be noisy. Well, you know, they have that big area like where the garden place is. It's like a community, like, area, right? Oh, okay. Are there people with kids in that neighborhood?
Where's Lori? Paging Lori.
This has been so flashing too. I wonder if there's some. Like,
Yeah, it
no,
flashes.
that
most-
was John.
Oh, oh. Is Lori in the hallway, like, talking to people? You'll get a.
He wasn't when I walked through. Yeah.
The word gaff comes from an old French word, which was a hook that you used on the docks, but then it got turned into this use like when you make a big mistake, an embarrassing mistake, it's a gaff, right? Anyway, take your gaff and go.
You mean that long hook that you
Yeah,
like,
it's a long.
He was heading into the men's room as I was heading out. So he might. Yeah, I wouldn't rush him.
Okay, thank you. You could send the police department, send the fire department, but they have hooks too.
What they think.
There he is. All right, we are back, and I'm going to propose that we make a slight adjustment to the agenda tonight and move item 13 to now. So we would proceed item 12, if that's okay with council. And then miraculously, we have in front of us the rental registry folks who anticipated the fact that they were going to go next. So good evening, welcome. If you could just introduce yourselves, and maybe we should close that door. Okay, thank you. Wow. No running in the hall.
Good evening, Council, City Manager Baker. My name is Chuck Rissman. I'm Battalion Chief for the Fire Department and the Fire Marshal as well. And with me is
Patty Wayman. I oversee the rental registry program.
we were asked to come here tonight to give you the rental registry program update. You've received a memo from us as well with a good summary of this presentation. So this will be a summary of that memo that we gave you. As many of you know, this program started in 2024, right, as a process of capturing the rentals that were within the community and ensuring that they were safe for the people that were staying there. That's the goal of this program, right, is to make sure that our housing is safe for our folks that are renting within the community. So with that, let's dive into some of the numbers that we've got here.
So I think this slide is fairly self-explanatory. The first year was very volunteer folks who were aware of the new ordinance and went through our process and registered online. The movement that we're seeing, the increases in number of registered is definitely the trend, but it won't continue. It's all positive. The existing short-term rentals have already started to go down. People are discontinuing. The market teases them out. And we've seen a few more owner-occupied short-term rentals come online. I think that's, unless there's any questions, I mean.
The numbers here, as we had talked about in the office, as we put this memo together, I think the numbers that we're seeing here are on par with what we expected, maybe even a little bit more than what we had originally expected for registrations, which is good, right? That shows the team is out there. They're getting these registrations in here. They're working to make sure that we have a good return on this for these registrations.
So does that mean you think you have 6,300 units total registered now? Is that what that means?
Nope, 3,700.
37.
Oh, that's the total. The second column is the total. Okay.
So to help you understand this, the numbers that are here in front of us, total properties registered, those are unique addresses. So,
right.
Let's pick on right here around us, right? 112 Garden Street.
Yeah.
And that has, 100 units in it.
Right.
So it counts as one property, but then 100 units. And so that's why you see that difference there. We also thought it was important to just highlight, as you see it in the memo, right? We use units, and I know it sounds very utilitarian, but we're truly talking about homes, the homes that people are living in. So,
And the total number of units in the city you think is around 4?
I think the original number.
When we started this process with Paul Connor's help, we really were thinking there were about 3,200 units at housing. Now that did not include this market and Garden Street. Those had not been constructed yet. So if you put what's on this street with that 3,200, we're really dialing in at about that 3,800 where we are now, and that also really now has captured all of the large buildings. So much of Quarry Hill was slow to come on. Much of Lime Kiln was slow to come on. We missed those that first year, or they avoided registration. Whatever the correct terminology is, but all the big units are now on. We suspect there are still, I'm sure 100, couple hundred single-family homes being used as rentals that we only identify through either complaint or we drive by a place and we say, that looks like a rental property. Perhaps we should do a little investigation, reach out to a property owner. And so the numbers will not continue to increase unless there's more development happening.
Okay.
Yep. Right. Great. Yep. Any additional questions on this one?
Or you look at Front Porch Forum and other social
Sometimes
media.
that
Patty's
happens.
laughing to herself.
Can I ask one quick question? So that I think that answers the question that I had when I read this Sunday, whenever that was, yesterday. The reason why we don't have more uptake is because we just don't know where they are. Is that correct? Like, there's no way to enforce the registry because I read the ordinance quickly, didn't read it in detail, but I read the ordinance and it sounds like it's a requirement.
But it is a voluntary requirement. It's very much like you got to register your dog. But if you don't do it, and you can get away with not getting. And I think there is a part of just people not being educated and knowing they need to. I don't think it's a lot of people being elusive about it. It's just that they don't know. So the team has done things to outreach through your water bill, other mechanisms to try to get it out there. And I think we'll never capture them all, but we're definitely capturing the vast majority of them.
Yeah, I got some data at the Housing Committee book discussion that was generated from the Census Bureau for South Burlington. It had a little over 3,700 rental units. So clearly, that was 2024. So it's clearly in the ballpark.
Yeah,
if I were to hazard a guess, I'd say another 200 it would be a nice snapshot. So maybe 3,900 to 4,000 would be our maintenance number, barring any large construction in the next couple of years.
I had a quick question on the existing short-term rentals. Would those be characterized as like the Airbnb, VRBO market?
Yeah.
Yes. So I avoid that terminology because those are brands. The existing short-term rentals are the short-term rentals that predated the ordinance, that were in use prior to April 1st of 2024. They have a sunset clause. There's a sunset clause built into that. There have been some folks that tried, in between the first and second year, that tried to tell me that their relative was moving into that or lived next door and it would be owner occupied. Well, I make notes of everything, and we were able to capture some of those that were more elusive. I think when we're just about to discontinue the existing short-term rental, if that's the way things stay, we're going to see a bigger drop in the next year. That's my.
Because I recall when this was a big discussion on council before my time, it was focused on short-term rentals at the time. But was there? I don't recall it being this small a number. Do you remember?
Right. I think that's the ballpark that we thought it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I believe it was between about 50 and 60 was what we had identified, but they were clearly the most vocal group, so while the ordinance really impacts, 565 way more properties, those people we never heard from. It was the 4 or 5 families on both sides of the short-term rental discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Question on the short-term rentals. What is the definition? My mind doesn't hold these details.
No, that's fine. Less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days.
Yep.
Okay.
And anything more than that is a long-term rental.
Okay.
There are a few nuances. Thank you. But that's the short version.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's more than just the registrations, right? We get out and we inspect these units. The total properties inspected, as you can see in that first year, 222. We've upped that now to 381 in this past year. And again, those are unique addresses, so that doesn't capture, or that's why you see that total units inspection, below that is much higher. Now, one of the things just to highlight for you is, there's a difference there, right? We got 3,700 registered units, but only 1,700 of them have been inspected at this point. One of that's just the sheer volume, right? Our inspectors are out there working every day. They're doing, inspections all over the city. But there's also a big cluster of the newest buildings that have come online don't require an inspection for the first 5 years. Once they've received a certificate of occupancy from the office, they have 5 years before they need to be inspected again. So when you look at the majority of what's around us here, they don't require an inspection. They're on our registry and they count as numbers that are registered, but they don't require an inspection. So that's why you see that bigger difference in those numbers that are there. So,
And the total number of inspections includes re-inspections.
yes,
That's a lot of re-inspections.
Yep. And that's our next slide. Okay. Right. So total number of violations found in the last year, around 2,220. Might seem like a shocking number. You'd be surprised that the majority of the initial inspections that are performed, we usually find something. We find usually one item that's like, hey, this isn't up to code, right? And it's usually just the owners. They don't know any, different. They don't know the codes. They don't read those books. They're renting a unit. So usually we find something, in one of those units. But the good news is, out of those, 2,220, 1,600 of those violations have been corrected. They're in our books as having been marked as a violation and now marked as corrected. So we're getting compliance, and people are, taking these things serious and getting the stuff fixed that needs to be fixed. And as of the generation of this memo, we had over 200 units that had received a certificate of compliance, saying that, yep, your unit is good. You are up to code. And
that's 200 out of 1,700?
200 unique addresses. 200 out of
200 out of 381.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So about half.
Yep. So.
And when you cite number of violations, is that multiple, or there could be more than one violation per property?
Yes.
So,
yep.
Yeah, so one might have 3, one might have 1.
Exactly. Yep. This is just a pure count of violations that were, a check mark on the inspection form.
When you do the inspections, are the tenants usually there?
50-50.
50-50.
Yep,
And when the tenants are there and you find the violations, are the tenants appreciative of you finding the violations?
It depends what it is.
Oh, didn't think about that.
If it means
Yeah,
they
it
have to
depends.
get out.
We give, the whole philosophy behind this is not to be punitive, it's to be educational for everyone. It's pretty clear in some of our bigger, newer properties, or even the well-managed properties, that if a smoke detector is down, odds are really good the tenant or tenants have removed it for some reason. It was beeping or whatever. That's our opportunity to educate everybody. And we document, it's the property owner's responsibility to make sure that it is reinstalled or replaced. We document that because we go back and test it. And then we provide them, in that initial education, we provide them what the consequences can be if we come back and it's down again. I hate using the carrot and the stick as the example, but ultimately it's about safety. We don't want to hit anybody with a ticket that may or may not get paid. Leave them alone.
Another good tenet violation often is extension cords,
Mm.
where you will say a tenant will run a extension cord into a multi-pronged outlet that was never intended to be that, but the tenant did that. So then we will remove that. And I think a point that Patty did make is while the tenant may attend it, she always requires an owner's representative to be there. The tenant cannot be the one representing the owner.
That's not in our ordinance.
Right. Yeah. And for homes that are built pre-1978, do you have you seen any instances where there might be a lead paint issue with children present?
We have, yes.
You have not
And
yet.
Yes. So anybody that owns a pre-1978 property,
Yeah.
it is presumed to contain lead.
Right. Right.
And the biggest issue that we've had is educating people, because folks were not filing back in the day, back a few years ago, it was just the EMP compliance statement. Now it's called the IRC compliance statement. The state adopted the federal standard, which is easier in some respects, but more difficult in others. And when you figure that most of the individual family, the single family homes or the duplexes are like over by the airport and whatnot, those are the pre-78 properties. They didn't know anything about this. It wasn't for not wanting to. And to add to the conversation, they're more than willing to be in compliance and to do what we've asked them, because the way I explain it to my inspector is we care about the conditions. Filing the form is the state's issue, but that's a place for us to start. And we require that they file that, but I really want to see, we really want to see that the paint is stable and that it's being maintained. I think I've gotten a little bit off of what you were saying, but there are, this is a huge lift in educating those smaller property
Well, that's the
owners.
important thing, is to inform people that didn't know before that this issue could exist, and there are state requirements, federal requirements. So, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
I have a question on that last slide.
Sure.
Of the 620 violations that have not been corrected yet, are they all current, or are some of them really old and people just aren't coming into compliance?
So I think it's safe to, we prioritize the violations as being like major life safety, and then maybe not minor, still a violation, but not as likely to kill somebody. And the priority is smoke and CO detectors, because that's your protection for a failed heating system, heating systems. And then there's argument about IRC and extinguishers, because you're not going to see the long-term, we are not likely to see the long-term effects of lead paint, but it has a very negative effect on the occupants, especially if they're under 6. Marching orders are always the same, and we typically give our property owners the order of importance if they're confused or need that direction or instruction.
So are some of the 600 pretty old and they're just not important, so you're not following up on them, or are you getting them? Are they mostly current?
It's mostly giving them time to get the corrections made, right?
Yep,
So
okay.
at the time that we pulled these numbers, right, that 620 outstanding could be as low as 500 now, right? It's just giving them time to catch up
So
on
they're
them.
mostly, it's not like they're
We never
2 or
just
3 years
we
old.
never write them off and just say, oh, we'll just leave them in the system. There's always a follow-up process. It may take a while if it's a low-level violation, and then ultimately getting the property owner to get back to you, as they'll talk about later, can be a challenge.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for some of those violations, is it the case that maybe the correction is taking too long and we're not letting them be rented anymore? Like, how many of them are at the point where, okay, it's just not rentable?
So, to be honest with you, no, people have been, even the people that we've made replace, well, we haven't made them, we've provided with the information, but that have had to replace entire heating systems have been thankful. But that's a big financial lift for a lot of the smaller property owners. And especially in the winter, there's a shortage of the contractors, a shortage of materials. They we will give them a reasonable amount of time, but we check in with them about every 30 days or so.
Andrew, I think to answer your question, we have not displaced anyone
No.
because of a code compliant issue. We have not. I think we're working on one that doesn't meet the code, but we have not said to anyone, "You can't live here."
No. And to add to that, like I said, the smoke and CO detection piece is, if that's the priority, and the second is the heating system, and they have the smoke CO, and they're working with alternative heat source in the meantime, because there is, ability to use like space heaters and stuff. We will let that go, but like I said, we follow up every 30 days, if not sooner.
So, in tied into this, right, most common violations in order of the ones that show up the most, right? So, usually we see GFCI outlets missing where they're supposed to be by code. But the next two below that are the ones that, I starred them because, right, those are the ones that have direct life safety impacts, right? And these are literally in this order, these are the ones that we're seeing the most often. So, getting smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors installed and up to code. And literally just last week we had another heating system failure, cracked heat exchanger, unit was red tagged during the inspection, and now it needs to get replaced, right? So those are the things that we're seeing out there through these inspections.
And are the wireless connected CO detectors allowed in South Burlington now or no?
We are allowing them in up to a two-family dwelling.
Okay.
What I have heard that they are incredibly hard to find a UL listed wireless detector. So it has to be a UL listed device. And I guess that's really hard to find. So went through this recently with somebody. So if you want to talk about some of the challenges.
I think should probably start with successes, right?
Sure. Whichever.
No. Cancellations and last minute rescheduling by owners and managers has been a real challenge. There's no penalty for that if it's a habit. It's just very challenging to creating schedules, and both of my inspectors are very detail oriented when it comes to managing their schedules. And then they have an hour or 2 hours of never say free time, right? It's getting folks trained to understand that this is a process and it needs to be followed, and we're due the same respect that they would expect of us if we needed to cancel. The next one is we called it programming errors in the registration portal. Once we went live last January, so January of 25, we found there were multiple programming changes that were made from day one to, I'd say, about 8 weeks ago, maybe 12 weeks ago at this point. I had to touch, for lack of a better way to say it, I had to touch every single application in some way, shape, or form this year as I had in the past. Did not expect that. And we have set up, or we are attempting to set up, a meeting with our provider so that, because I've been keeping a list of the specific challenges and how to correct those so that that doesn't happen again. When somebody registers and none of their information changes from, and that happens a lot, especially with, again, the bigger property owners, bigger property managers, they should be able to pay online or simply put a note in that says sending a check. The renewal notifications, I think that people didn't know what to expect, which is why when the notifications went out from the system, they went to a lot of folks' spam or junk folders. I sent out an email 30 to 45 days before April 1st to tell folks what they should be looking for, and we had to reset it. it was a challenge, and there was about a 4 to 6 week period where, at the risk of sounding a little bit like a baby, I was getting it from 5 different avenues, between the online portal communications, my focused inbox, my other inbox, the rental registry. It was a challenge to keep up with all of the things that were going on. I anticipate that the majority, for selfish reasons and for not selfish reasons, for the customer's experience, it will be more seamless next year. This was the first year.
I think one of the things we didn't contemplate when we did an April 1 renewal, it really wouldn't matter what day you picked. The vast majority of people do it in the last 2 weeks. It's kind of like paying your taxes. And we didn't prepare to staff that way. So one of our inspectors are out in the field. Next year, we'll pull them in the whole month of March just to process renewals. So we didn't have this. Again, our first time doing this style renewal. This is in using a newer online system for that. We just weren't prepared. Quite honestly, we weren't prepared for it, and not just because it wasn't a lived experience for us. And I think what you will see next year is we may even put on a part-time person just for the month of April, month of March to handle the workload, because between the calls and the emails and the physical things you have to do in the system, it wasn't good customer service. But I think we're committed to. We learn from that. It is what it is, and we built this permitting system we built the plane while we were trying to fly it at some level, and we've learned a lot of things. And thank goodness we have Anna now as a data helping us kind of try to hone that in and bringing it in to consistency. But again, it was a learning curve, and it will be better next year. But it was a rough landing. We brought that plane in on a rough landing on renewals for sure.
A lot of turbulence.
Is there some reason that you wouldn't just do rolling renewals based on when the property was registered?
We would have to renew the ordinance, change it in the ordinance. And I think at the end of the day, it is kind of helpful to set a deadline. And I think that's we may want to consider, because right now there's no penalty, and we agreed not to do a look back. So a property owner just sent us a check, didn't register year 1 or year 2. I just saw the check come in for $16,000. Was their rental registry fee. A big property owner, right? A lot of units. There's no penalty for not paying year 1 and year 2. Now, we got them in the system now, and we're moving forward, and that has been our strategy: is let's get them registered, get them in compliance, and slowly move forward. So I don't know if that answers your question, Elizabeth, but I think once we put a deadline and we've learned how to accommodate it, I think having one deadline is going to be better than rolling.
I absolutely agree. And I'm speaking from my past experience. It doesn't matter what you set as the date. It's always going to be the same. It's the same. If you set a certain date, it's always going to be the last minute scramble. I would entertain, the rolling, but that's really a you question and not a.
Bureaucracy can be hard sometimes, especially when it's new.
And that's
While we're talking about some challenges here, I didn't include a slide on it, but I figured it was worth just highlighting for you folks tonight. Because it ties in with some of these challenges that we've experienced. There was some financials included in the memo, right? And one of those said that there was about $140,000 that was still outstanding that needed to be collected for rental registry. We reran those numbers today, and we're sitting at around $75,000, right? So significant change in just the last couple weeks. Much to the chief's point, we've seen some big checks coming in the last couple of weeks, and we've got them processed. Some of the delay there and some of the reason you saw such a big number in that memo was these challenges of programming errors or data on the application not being correct or the check not being the right amount, that kind of stuff.
That was a huge piece of it.
If you send in your check for $150, but you didn't pay the $7.50 capital assessment fee, that Patty's not processing the 150. She's working with the property owner to get it all cleared before that gets processed. So at any given time, we're sitting on a little bit of cash doing that, and that all factors into that. But I think I just did you'll see this in your quarterly financials that I just did last week. We've already exceeded our revenue projection. Now the renewals are in. We've exceeded our FY26 revenue projection. So even with that outstanding revenue, we feel like we're covering the cost of the program.
And then just the other challenge is, it's one of the things that we require is a property owner or an emergency contact. I know a lot of the smaller folks use themselves for everything. Well, that doesn't help, or they put their partner down, somebody who lives in the home. Explaining to folks, this is not a medical emergency. This is if you husband and wife or partners are on vacation together, we're looking for somebody that can take possession of your respond in an emergency situation. We've not encountered that yet, but it does happen. Yeah. Our successes, the amount of education that we are doing on a daily basis, whether it be in coordination with our community partners, in the units with property owners, it's honestly not quantifiable because it's constant and ongoing. As a result, the rental housing stock, particularly those older properties that the city never looked at, pre the program, they're getting safer every day, whether it's windows being replaced or having to notify folks they can't use part of their basement because it's not habitable. Updating smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. Those people didn't realize they have shelf lives and that they work better if you're using the same brand across the board. And oh, by the way, you don't need combinations in the bedrooms, you need combinations in the common areas and smokes in the bedrooms. Those every single day. In fact, Pete, my primary inspector, I was trying to find a way to add this. The first time he came into the office and said, "Well, I saved a life today." Really? And he said, "Yeah, I just told this lady she had to replace her heating system, and she thanked me." So every time he comes in and has had to tell somebody, "This is a non-starter, this needs to be done immediately or as soon as possible," he'll say, "I saved another life today." And like I said, most people are appreciative of the education. Nobody wants to kill anybody, or accidentally or intentionally, right? And then the last one is the number of windows our job is to make properties safe. And if they can make a basement or an attic space safe by simply replacing windows that meet the code, then they do it. And they don't usually give us a hard time about it.
Yep.
Great.
Almost done. So ordinance challenges, some things that we just threw in here, and I think one of, some of these were kind of in there already last year. It's up to you guys if you want to revisit the ordinance and look at the sunset clause on the short-term rentals. Maybe bring in some way to, have a graduated fee schedule or something like that, so that when we have these missed appointments or last-minute canceled appointments, or we have that property owner who's just not putting in the effort, right, and not trying to meet us even halfway. Is there a way to have some sort of a penalty for that kind of behavior? But certainly up to you guys to decide. I don't think it's something we're looking to discuss here tonight. Just wanted to throw those back at you. But I think one of the most important things is folks have welcomed our inspectors into their properties, have taken to heart what we're educating them on, and really are just doing what they can to make their places safer, right? That's what they are making changes and doing the things that we ask of them, every day. So
that's great. That's great. And we also passed in the consent agenda the authorization for your addition for the engineering work, right? Yeah. So someday you'll be out of the trailer.
Yeah, they assured me only one more winter.
But
So I have a couple of things.
Sure.
Would it be helpful to add some kind of stick of penalty provision, or do you think that the way it's operating is sufficient?
Personally, I believe that we need even if we don't use a reinspection fee, for instance, it needs to be available. Tickets start at $400, and I would get laughed out of Judicial Bureau. Court, if I issued a $400 ticket for a GLC outlet that wasn't addressed. The reinspection fees, I say maybe it's $50 for the first missed inspection, $100 for the second, $150. I'm just spitballing here.
Would bring you back a recommendation.
You'll bring back a recommendation on that? That makes sense to me to look at that.
And even if we don't, it needs to be a tool in the toolkit, even if it doesn't get charged. And I would rather have people spend that money.
So I would look forward to that. And I'm also curious, I seen you in your longer memo, you actually recommended that, I think you recommend that we relook, and maybe you just repeated that at the sunset. And I'm just curious your perspective on that and why I think you're making that recommendation.
That's kind of an easy one, and I can get data, but I don't have it right here. A good majority of the people that own those existing short-term rentals have roots in our community. They either grew up here and have moved away for work or whatever, but they hold on to a property because it means a lot to them, but they need to support it because of taxes and whatnot, and they can only do it by short-term renting. I can think of 5 properties, or at least 5 owners off the top that are long-term property owners in this community. Maybe they've retired to the south, but they come spend 3 or 4 months in the summer here and don't short-term rent it. It's just something that I think might be.
Because as I'm recalling the conversation, this was 3-4 years ago, the concern that a lot of community members had were short-term rentals that were, on the water or were heavily used and were noisy and a lot of traffic and people not being respectful. Is your perspective that those type of units, say, are not in existence anymore?
I'm not fielding complaints from short-term rental property owners. In the 2 years, exactly 2 years, since I've been here, I have fielded 2 complaints from the same neighborhood on the waterfront, and they have dissipated. And it's because I typically talk to the property owner and say, are you aware that these are the complaints going on, and this is why there's a sunset clause built into this. I have not fielded a lot of complaints about noise specifically. We did have one.
Yeah, I think this is one of those issues that is a political issue, and I say we're not seeing short-term rentals as being problematic from a life safety perspective. So from our perspective, allowing them to continue operation is not harmful. The council took this on because housing, right? They wanted to have more permanent housing and not Airbnb. So whether they'd prefer it to be a long-term rental. And we had 1 or 2 properties that we had some complaints about. We have not received the complaints, and they're not a life safety issue. So I think we're trying to bring it back to you is those 30 properties pay quite a lot of money. If your policy policy priorities haven't changed, then we shouldn't tackle this.
Well, the issue was.
Can I just add a sentence to that? I think the other part you saw during that policy debate was balancing that housing, life safety, not letting them grow, and then you put the 2-year extension on for the affordability question for those folks who were invested in it. So if that's still your kind of guiding principle, then maybe it's worth revisiting.
Yeah, no. So, we put the 4 years on, as I recall, and Tim, I think you were on the council now too, because of these complaints about noise. But if those issues have been mitigated because people are maybe following the rules now because there is an inspection. They realize someone's looking over their shoulder. I could certainly see extending the grandfathering, maybe grandfathering permanently. I know we're not supposed to use that word anymore. I don't know what the right word is, but you get my grift. But if those issues don't exist anymore or are significantly mitigated, I can see revisiting the 4-year date.
Yeah.
I think what we would, and again, not to add a complexity to it, but we would also want to look at those people because some of those have made the shift to long term or sold the property. We would want to let those people who have done that know, hey, you can. I
wouldn't let them flip back. I would just say if they're existing short term, we extend the
on
date.
this date. Sure. Okay.
So we don't. Again, because we didn't want more short-term rentals because of the housing issue, but there was this question, what do you do with the existing? And we came up with this compromise to phase them out because of these issues. But if those issues don't exist or they're significantly mitigated, we can revisit that compromise.
So it may be we had not put it on our work plan. I don't, unless he did it tonight, because he was working on the work plan to bring for you next month. On the policies and strategies, maybe we look at just bringing back an update to the ordinance with some of the things that we've talked about tonight, including this for your consideration in FY27.
Sounds good to me.
Quick question on that. If I've had a short-term rental and I sunsetted it because the ordinance said I need to sunset it, and
it's 2028 is the sunset.
I understand, but so I sunsetted mine because that's coming, and other people didn't sunset theirs, and now they're getting grandfathered in. Is that going to create frustration?
That's what I was trying. That was the point I was trying to make, is that we may want to go back to those 13 properties that left and said, hey, yeah, this has been, moratorium has been lifted. I think you have 13 homeowners or so that you would want to consider.
I also think the economy has played in. The economy has played into the short-term rental market, and people are switching because they're not making as much as they had hoped or planned or originally were.
Yeah, and just a quick comment. I am a small consumer of the services of our rental registry group, and the programming issues, and I'm happy to discuss this offline at some point, but the programming issues associated with, is it Clarity, the service? We're not good. I think I received no less than about 25 emails during the registration process, which was only part of the issue, but it was not an elegant or a smooth running process. So hopefully that'll be remedied next year.
We are working hard on that one. You're not the only one with that experience. Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I just want to applaud what you're doing because I think this is super important work. Making sure these units are safe, and it's alarming to know that so many of them didn't have functioning carbon monoxide detectors, et cetera. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say two things. One, thank you for saying that. So this is an example of, you approved this ordinance in February 2024, and we have stood up this whole new programming, new service delivery system to our community to keep our neighbors safe. And really want to thank John and Corbin and Steve and Patty and the team for standing up a whole new thing. You do have a constituent online who has raised their hand.
Who wants to speak?
Drew.
Oh, Drew. Hey, Drew.
Hello, Drew Schatzer from South Burlington. I wasn't planning to speak on this tonight, but I was glad I got to listen to this conversation. I just figured I'd take a moment to share the experience of a renter. I've been a renter in South Burlington for 9 years. I've been in my current unit for 8 years. My building is in the registry. I'm also an inspector by trade. I understand the importance of this. I totally agree with this needing to be done and keeping our community members safe, especially, I'm fortunate to be in the unit I'm in. I have a very proactive and conscientious property management staff. And anyway, we did have to spend money and we had some minor violations that were identified in my building. Anyway, just want to speak to the experience of rent protection, rent increase. You know, when I got in the unit I'm at 8 years ago, my rent was less than $1,500 a month for a 2-bedroom. In the last 5 years, we've been asked to pay $100 more a month every year. And there's really no protection for renters in that regard. And so when I was having this discussion with my property manager last year about why are my rates going up again, you know, nothing's changed. We don't even have new picnic tables, or picnic tables are falling apart, you know, stuff like that. Well, they said, well, the town just made us pay $20-something thousand or however it was for their part in that fee. So they were basically pushing the blame off on you guys. And again, like I know this is necessary, but I just want to make sure you're aware that like they're pushing these fees off onto us, and I don't know how they expect me to come up with an extra $600 to $1,200 a year to you know, to keep up with these rent increases. But I would just ask that if there are more of these costs that are going to be pushed onto us renters, that maybe some sort of funding be explored. I know like ARPA funding was super important and very helpful in my line of work. I saw many people take advantage of that program while they could and install wastewater treatment practices, both in mom and pop businesses and also in these communities where a few hundred users have to pay for $1 million wastewater treatment retrofits or whatever. And that shouldn't be these one-off, you know, heaven sent blessings that we should, you know, just, that's what our tax dollars should be used for. Instead of spending $1 billion a day in Iran, we should be, you know, spending this money on our infrastructure. And anyway, so just know that this program did increase the rent of people here in South Burlington. Many of the people, you know, can't afford to pay more. And I would just, you know, I don't know how municipal funding works at all, so I don't want to speak on something I don't know a lot about. But just please keep that in mind in the future if more of these inspection fees and whatnot are going to be passed on to renters. Thanks.
Thanks, Drew. I understand. Burlington renters have been paying these fees for years and years and years and years.
And Drew, just to maybe just provide some information. So for a regular long-term unit, you know, the city fee works out to like $12 a month. And for a permanently affordable unit, it's $2 a month. So if the landlord's passing $100 to you each year, that's not because of the $2 or the $12.
Good. All right. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on back to item 12, which is discuss the follow-up conversations for the events of March 11th. Jesse Baker.
So at your last meeting, you talked about holding a conversation with migrant justice with an independent facilitator. I've made progress on planning that, and I need to know who the 2 counselors are who will attend that on May 20th during the day. That is the action item for tonight.
Volunteers?
I think Lori needs to do it.
Excuse me?
I think Lori. I vote for Lori.
You vote.
Definitely needs to
You're
be
making
there.
a motion to vote for Lori, and you volunteer as well. Did you want to do it?
Elizabeth wanted to as well.
But we can't. Can we? We only send 2.
Who else is going to be in the room? I know Jesse, you'll be there. I can't
Me,
recall.
Chief Bro, the 2 of you, a facilitator, and then up to 4 representatives from migrant justice. I don't know who they will be yet.
Okay, and the facilitator is someone named Drew, correct?
No.
Someone named.
So they're not confirmed yet, so I don't want to.
Okay.
On spot yet, but it's an academic from the region that was actually recommended by Migrant Justice, and I've done a little work with them.
Okay.
So I've had incredibly positive feedback on the framing of the opinion piece that I put in the other paper from multiple sources. And that's the framing that I'd like to bring to this meeting.
Rock, paper, scissors?
Well, yeah, I feel like, I mean, obviously I supported the resolution that was made to really condemn the surveillance and monitoring activity or enforcement activities by ICE. My interest in participating is to really listen with some curiosity as to sort of what the expectations of this particular group was on March 11th in terms of what an expected outcome was going to be. It's to understand perspective taking there, but also with a primary focus on preserving First Amendment rights and public safety in South Burlington. I think it's so important that there be that frame of reference when you come to the table, but also the intent to do some perspective taking with migrant justice.
Are you in town that day?
I
You are. You're not going to be on your Allagash trip? I'm just curious. Huh? Oh, okay. Just curious.
I mean, I would be willing to do it. I'm not going to jump into the pool here because it seems like I feel very strongly that Lori should be there, and it seems like the two of you are very interested in this. My thoughts are that I don't know. I think that it would be helpful to have some degree of willingness to see through the eyes of the people who you're going to be talking to. And I'm just putting that out there because this meeting will potentially be a flashpoint for further division if it's not handled in that manner. And I think that, I would just put that out there. I think whoever does it should be aware of that. And I'm not, I'm not saying this just because of the optics, but I think that a woman will bring a way of speaking and a certain type of communication to the mix that anyway, I think it might be important to have more than just men coming from our team in the room. And I know that this is a very difficult issue, and I know both of you are really interested in doing it, but that's my perspective on it.
Would you be willing to defer to Elizabeth? Let her go?
No, I really want to do this. And I've deferred to you on lots of things in the past. The school board, police chief, other things.
So, turn your mic on.
Andrew, can I ask why you're so interested in doing this instead of
I mean, you can
Elizabeth?
see I wrote this opinion piece. I spent a lot of time thinking about, talked to a lot of people about it. And it's something that, honestly, I think I'd be good at. And I got a lot of great feedback on that piece. And that's why I wrote it.
Yeah. So I'd like to just chime in a little bit. I think you wrote a great piece. I don't have any qualms about that. I don't want to see us get in a squabble over who does it. I am pretty invested in it. I brought it forward at our very first meeting after the 11th, and I think I also have a lot to add to it. I agree with the optics about two men and Jesse versus having another woman involved, and I also hope that this is not the only meeting that's going to happen. I hope that what we're doing here is opening a door to conversation. I think that there are very different perspectives and commitments or oaths that have been taken by members of our community that don't necessarily overlap and then in times conflict with one another. And we need to have really open, dignified conversations about that and understand how everybody's can work together better in the future. So I hope that this conversation, which I would choose to be broader than it is, but it's structured the way it is, I hope that it's not the last conversation that we have about this issue. And so there may be opportunities for us to switch in and switch out.
I don't know how to resolve this because we have two people that want to go for the same spot. And
Probably
I think
what
that you should go.
Probably what you do is nominate and vote.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to do it.
And I agree with Lori, this doesn't have to be the last conversation. It's the first, but not the last. And, frankly, I could make an argument that I should go because I'm the most involved of anyone here in Indivisible. And I've also thought very deeply about this, Andrew. I haven't written about it, but I've thought very deeply about it. I've read a lot about it. I have strong opinions about it. I see it from both sides. So I'm just saying that I think we all feel invested in this, despite the fact that you were the one to publish something in the other paper. And, just throwing that out there. This doesn't have to be the end of the line. I may just reach out to Migrant Justice by myself and, meet with them and talk about what happened. So anyway, just
make a motion.
I make a motion, and again, this is hard. I make a motion that Lori and Elizabeth be nominated because in the first round, I think that there ought to be female representation in this group. And I know that I'm sensitive to that because I'm a female, and I know what it looks like to me when I see a cast of men, making this type of, effort.
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Sorry. So let's move on to, is there anything else you want to say about that meeting? Let's move on to item number 14, which is, Drew, hey, can you keep it to under a minute, please?
Yep, I'll be quick. Thanks, folks. Yeah, I was mostly just wanting to hear the progress on this, and it sounds like this isn't the meeting that the community is hoping for as well. I believe that this topic deserves a further community discussion, and me and Councilmember Fitzgerald met briefly a week ago or so, and just spitballed some ideas. I thought more about it because I didn't really have a lot to bring to that conversation, but at the bare minimum, I think we should try to have another community discussion that's not necessarily a city council meeting, where just residents of South Burlington are allowed to speak in order to hopefully keep numbers down. If a resident wants to bring in someone that's not a resident but speak on their behalf, they can, I guess. But anyway, it doesn't sound like this specific meeting is the place for that. But I just want to echo that it's drastically needed, and that because beyond just the scope of this conversation that you guys want to have about, where the First Amendment right ends and whatnot, I think it's just really important for us community members to have a conversation with our police in particular about what our expectations are around the duty to intervene when there are unlawful, when law enforcement is acting unlawfully. And there was one other piece, but I guess I'll just leave it at that. But I'd like to see more than just this meeting with, one-on-one with the council and Migrant Justice, because the community wants it. We want to speak to our police. We want to set these expectations.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Is there anything else you want to add with this? Okay, great. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item 14, which is appoint a council representative to the board of the South Burlington City Center Collaborative.
So this was on your agenda at the last meeting.
Yeah.
We talked about it for a while. As you know, you are right now the majority funder. The city is the majority funder of SB3C, and in the MOU we executed with them back in August, you have a seat on the board, so you need to appoint somebody to the board.
So I had a great meeting with Sophia last week. Can't remember what day exactly. And I'm quite interested in being liaison to the SB3C. I can't do it with 3 other liaisons, and had a conversation with Andrew, who is willing to maintain the liaison for the Sextons. Given that, I would toss my name in the ring.
So you want to give up your Sextons?
I give up the Sextons
and take on SB3C.
Take the SB3C. And because there is a Sextons staff position that's going to be opening up, I think that, Andrew, you could handle it for the couple of month overlap, being a solo liaison.
Oh, he's going to be buried in
Sextons. They got a lot going on. They got a lot going on there.
Nobody laughed. Nobody laughed.
What'd you say, Steve?
Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Go.
Did anybody else have an interest in this position? It sounds like it's fun. I just don't have time for it. So.
I don't have time. I wish I could do it, but I don't have time.
No?
I mean, I go to meetings when I can.
Okay. All right. So you're volunteering. You're volunteering. We don't need a motion for this. He's volunteering.
Can you just make a quick motion
Quick motion? Okay.
on the 2 liaison appointments? So that Lori will step off the Sextons and step on to SB3C.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. All right. Item 15. Can I have a motion to convene as liquor control?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Now we need to approve
of
Williston Road and all the way down to Broadview Corporation. Several
moved.
licenses. Can I have a
Second.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Need a motion to come out of liquor
So
control?
moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We're out of liquor and we're at review the topics for May 18th.
So May 18th will primarily be your next four committee presentations, and then a hefty presentation on the Bartlett Bay wastewater treatment plant upgrade and potential action for the future. Although we will not be asking you to take definitive action on the 18th. Just provide information and possibly warn a necessity hearing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Necessity hearing.
Okay.
Necessity. Are you asking me what that is?
No, I know it is, but I didn't know that we were anticipating one, I guess.
For Bartlett
So,
Bay?
yeah, you have to take a necessity hearing.
Oh, for
and put
bond.
a bond vote.
Oh, okay,
on the
okay,
bond.
okay.
Got it. All right. Is that it for that?
Yep.
Okay, so item 17. Is there any other business tonight?
I have 2 quick things.
They're never quick.
Elizabeth, do you have Drew's contact information?
Yes.
I'd like to get that from you if I could, because I'd love to talk to him. And the other is, I'd just like a little bit of clarity or make sure I'm clear about what I'm going to the Rec and Parks Committee to talk about around pickleball. My understanding is I'm going to say that council would like them to look at the issue of pickleball in our community and sighting and disturbance and come up with a recommendation to council for how we can move forward with solving the sighting and disturbance and access issue in a way that's equitable across the community. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, sounds good.
so that's what I'm thinking of saying.
Yep.
Good.
Good. Those 2 quick things.
Yeah, I mean, let's not presuppose that. I think we need someone to evaluate.
Absolutely.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they may well come back and say we want to have somebody come and do a study. Yeah, that may very, very much may be part of their recommendation.
Good. Any other business? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
We have a motion saying all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. But don't go anywhere. You have Red Book